Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this virtual hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 17th of September. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Councillor Caleb Tomlinson and I am the chair of this committee. Councillor Mal Donoghue is the vice chair. Also present with me are our officers and some members of the committee. This is an audio and video meeting. It is being recorded and the stream will also be live on YouTube. The web address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting and can be found on the Council's website. As the application before us tonight relates to major development, the procedure for this meeting is slightly different to that of an ordinary planning committee. Up to 7 supporters and 7 objectors will be permitted to speak. Those speaking in either support or objection will have a total speech time of 30 minutes respectively. There should be no repetition between speakers. The Deputy Monitoring Officer will operate a stopwatch and will confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if in the middle of making a valid point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. I will then allow any councillors not on committee to make representations for 4 minutes each. As the chair of this committee, I have used my discretion to vary the allocated speaking time for representatives of the applicant and agent to allow them a combined speaking time of 20 minutes as opposed to the usual 15 minutes. After the report has been presented and any speakers have made their representations, I will bring the application into committee. If any committee members wish to speak on an application, you should unmute your microphone and use the chat function in the top right-hand corner to notify our moderator that you wish to speak. I will then invite you in order of request. Our Deputy Monitoring Officer, Dave, will repeat the motion before the vote is taken to ensure everyone is aware of what is being voted on. I will call each member alphabetically to vote and Dave will confirm the outcome of the decision. If the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for several minutes to try and resolve the issue, or if this is not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Okay, please can I ask all members to confirm you can see and hear and speak before the meeting begins. I will call you alphabetically. Councillor Will Adams.
Loud and clear, Chair.
Councillor Mal Donoghue.
Loud and clear, Chair.
Councillor James Flannery.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Cliff Hughes. Councillor Keith Martin.
I can hear you perfectly well, Chair.
Councillor Christine Melia.
Yes, I can hear you.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor David Shaw.
I can hear you, Chair.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Barry Yates.
Yes, Chair.
And our officers, Jonathan Node.
Yes, Chair.
Stephen Brown.
Yes, Chair.
Dave Whelan.
Yes, Chair.
Charles Crook. Charlotte Lynch.
Yes, Chair.
And Neil Stevens from LCC Highways.
Yes, Chair.
Do we have any apologies for absence?
There are no apologies, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. As this is a hybrid meeting, if any member dialing in remotely has a pecuniary interest, they are requested to leave the meeting completely rather than just mute your microphone. The member will be called to rejoin the meeting following the completion of the item in question. Does anyone have any interests? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether it's an interest or not, but going back to 2015, obviously, and the local plan, I was one that voted for the local plan, which included Pickering's Farm as a site allocation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that.
Sorry,
That's
Chair,
not-
if I could just comment on that. I don't
Certainly.
think that constitutes
No.
an interest, but I just thought, just in case that there are other members in the same position.
Yeah, but I think it's appropriate just to mention it, and the decision is yours, sir.
Can I come in, Chair?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't got an interest to declare only that I'm on Lancashire County Council and Chairman of Planning there, but that's non-pecuniary interest. But I have got a concern where I think a large number of the committee will be predetermining this application. The reason for that, I asked the monitoring officer to consider, is that in the Labour Party manifesto that went out before the election, the application was predetermined there because they said that they would not support any development on the Pickering Farm site, as it being Greenbelt, and it should be kept as Greenbelt. Now there is paperwork for this, and I'm sure the monitoring officer completely knows about it. So I'm just a bit worried that Labour councillors could find themselves in trouble with the law if they don't declare an interest, or pecuniary interest indeed, in this application. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll invite Dave to come in on that, Barry. Councillor Yates.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm aware of what Councillor Yates alludes to, of course. The question is whether the individual members on committee have predetermined this application. That is essentially a matter for each individual member of committee to decide. The note that Councillor Yates is referring to, that I'm aware of, was something that was put out at the time by the then leader of the opposition, the current leader. That was whenever, 16, 18 months ago, whenever. I can't comment. I'm not aware that any individual members of the committee have predetermined it. It's a matter for them to judge. I mean, the advice I would give is that it's perfectly okay for any member on committee to be predisposed against an application. The question is whether they've closed their minds to it or not. That's the legal test. And so essentially that's for the individual members of the planning committee to address their minds to that question. So that's all I would say, Chair.
Yeah. Can I come back, Chair?
Go on, I'll allow it.
Yeah, it's only briefly, Chair, just to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing, because it is a legal thing, this, and if you are predetermined, which I think every member of the Labour group did, because it was part of their manifesto to take over the council, that they will do that. If they do speak on it, then they could find themselves before a court of law for not declaring an interest of it's a planning application. I'll leave it there, Chair, and I do agree with the monitoring officer that it's up to each individual councillor to make sure that he's above the law when he's on planning applications. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, would you like to come in again on that, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, the question, the issue of whether somebody is predetermined an issue or not goes to the potential, creates a potential challenge to any decision made. That's the issue. I don't really see how the individual member as such can get into trouble. It's about, it's potentially opening up a legal challenge to a decision being made. But as I said before, members are entitled to be predisposed about an application. They're not entitled to close their minds to it. It's entirely up to members of the committee, to address that question. I'm not aware that any individual member of this planning committee has predetermined it, but it's a matter for them.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Are you happy with that now, Councillor Yates?
I'm completely happy, Chairman. It's just that I think one or two of the members won't be happy when if they do speak on this, but that's up to themselves, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have we all read?
Chair, Chair, could I declare an interest, please? I can't. It's Carol Waldridge.
Hi, Councillor Waldridge.
Hi. I can't get my video working. I've obviously managed to be heard, but I do need to declare a prejudicial interest as a local resident. And I will be speaking on it later as a non-member of the committee, and then we'll leave the meeting, as I've been advised to do by our monitoring officers.
Well done.
I'll bring Dave Whelan in, Councillor Wooldridge.
Yes, just to confirm that what Councillor Wooldridge said is correct. She doesn't have a pecuniary interest, she has potentially a prejudicial interest. It's ultimately her call, but she is entitled to speak, and then after she's spoken, then she should leave the meeting.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you,
Anyone
Chair.
else?
Chairman.
Could we switch mobiles off? We put them on silent, please. Councillor Walton.
Could I declare an interest as well? I wish to speak later as a ward councillor, but as a resident of Farrington West also.
Yeah,
So
it's
I will
not
leave the meeting.
I don't think it's prejudicial or pecuniary, is it?
Okay, thank you.
Chairman.
Yes?
Chairman, it's Councillor Green. Can I declare personal interest as the county councillor for part of the area covered by the application, and also as a Farrington parish councillor? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Do we have any other interests? Right, moving on. Item number 4 on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. Have we all read the minutes of the last meeting? And if so, do you agree with them? And if so, can I have a proposer and a seconder? Propose. Thanks, Councillor Adams. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Flannery. Okay, so we'll put that to the vote. Councillor Adams.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Donoghue. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Cliff Hughes. Councillor Keith Martin.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Christine Melia.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor David Shaw.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Phil Smith.
I'm not sure, Chair. There's an amendment that was put in there about an motion being withdrawn. That didn't actually happen, so the minute is not quite correct, I don't think. But
I'll bring Charlotte Lynch in on that one.
Yeah, so that refers to the minutes of the previous meeting to that meeting. Councillor Yates requested that those minutes be amended to reflect that he had moved an additional motion to the land at Cottage Gardens.
We're happy to move. Councillor Barry Yates.
Yes, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Yates. We're not doing appeal decisions till Monday, is that correct? Okay, item number 6, Pickering's Farm Master Plan, Penwortham. I will now invite Jonathan Nord to provide an introduction on master plans and then Janice to present the item. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought it'd be useful to set some context for the meeting this evening. Obviously, the committee is very used to determining planning applications on a monthly basis, but this is slightly different tonight. So I just thought I'll just do a quick introduction. Back in January this year, 3 things were submitted to us. The master plan that's before you tonight, together with its associated documents. There's an outline application also for land under the control of Taylor Wimpey and Homes England. And then there's a full application for the road across the site. These all came in January. I need to make it clear that tonight it is just the master plan that we are considering and not the other applications. They will come at a future date. So any discussion tonight does need to focus on the master plan itself. As I said earlier, master plans are very different to a planning application. There is no formal process for a master plan, but it's made clear on the Pickering's Farm site that a master plan is required in policy C1 of the local plan. So it is a requirement of our own local plan, but there's no nationally set procedure for this. So what is a master plan? We have had them before committee before, and I think it's fair to say they do take many different forms. You can have master plans for a very small site, which will be very simple and straightforward and maybe something like a couple of pages long. Equally, you can have master plans for very large sites like the one before us tonight. And I think for a large site, you would expect a certain level of detail and certain things to be firmed up that maybe on other sites would fall later to an application. Given the size of this site and the complexity of it, I think it's only fair that we do seek a lot of detail in this master plan. It is a complex site. There's key issues of infrastructure, as you'll hear from Janice. Deliverability is also key for us. There's no point in this committee considering a master plan before it that ultimately isn't deliverable and doesn't deliver for the site. Alongside the master plan tonight, you've also got a design code, and that should reflect how we want sites in South Ribble to look and feel. We know from previous discussions with members that there's an aspiration for sites in South Ribble to be something different, not just any old housing site anywhere in the country. It needs to reflect South Ribble. For large sites, the master plan stage is a really key point and is the ultimate opportunity to shape the site moving forward. If you leave it to the plan application stage, then that is too late in my view. It's therefore really important that the committee focus their minds on the master plan before them tonight and ultimately give a clear steer as to what the expectation is on the master plan moving forward. If we don't include what the council wishes on the master plan at this stage, then it is lost at later stages on applications. So I think this is a really, really key opportunity for committee to shape this master plan moving forward. With that, I'll hand over to Janice on the detail.
Thank you, Jonathan. So the Pickering's Farm site is allocated in the South Ribble local plan for residential-led development under policy C1. This policy requires that a master plan for the comprehensive development of the site be agreed. In the interests of clarity, the policy reads, planning permission will only be granted for the development of the Pickering's Farm site subject to the submission of A, an agreed master plan for the comprehensive development of the site. The master plan must include the wider area of the Pickering's Farm site, which includes the safeguarded land which extends to Coot Lane as shown on the policy's map, and make provision for a range of land uses to include residential, employment and commercial uses, green infrastructure and community facilities. B, a phasing and infrastructure delivery schedule. C, an agreed programme of implementation in accordance with the master plan and agreed design code. The site is also subject to policy A2, Crossborough Link Road, which requires at criteria B, a road to be constructed through the major development site at Pickering's Farm, as shown diagrammatically on the policy's map. This is an excerpt from the policy's map, which shows the site, the safeguarded land, and the Crossborough Link Road extension. So the site is located between the Kingsfold area of Penwitham to the north, Gloucester Call to the east, and Chainhouse Lane with Farrington beyond to the south. And the A582 is to the western boundary. And just to give some context, this is an aerial view of the site looking northwards towards the Kingsfold area. And this is an aerial view looking southwards towards the Farrington area. So the master plan has been submitted by Taylor Wimpey and Homes England for the site and consists of a suite of documents, the master plan, design code and infrastructure delivery schedule, together with a statement of community consultation. This is the latest version of the illustrative master plan and it highlights 15 key areas. So we've got 1, which is the new primary school, then 2 is the pedestrian link pedestrian bus link, cycle link to Kingsfold. Number 3 is the entrance gateway, which is a new route from the Penwitham Way A582 direct to the heart of the new community. 4 is an area to manage and contain surface water. 5 is new local facilities. Sorry, I'm not very good with this this pointer. 5 is for new local facilities, including employment and community use. 6 is the Crossbury Link Road bridge over the railway. 7 is sustainable urban drainage system. 8 is the Crossbury Link Road itself. 9 is improvements to existing sports pitch facilities. 10 is limited access onto Chain House Lane. 11 is children's play areas. 12 is parking and drop-off for the new school. 13 is extension to the existing community centre. 14 is the village green. And 15 advises the retention of the orchard and or land for future residential development if the orchard or part thereof is replaced within the master plan. So the developers carried out extensive consultation on the various stages of the master plan's development. These are outlined in section 4 of the master plan, and the submitted statement of community consultation also advises on the various realms of consultation. In addition, South Ribble have consulted on this final version of the master plan submitted in August 2020, although some amendments have been made to the master plan, which were submitted in September, but too late for reconsultation. All consultation responses and residents' comments from the various stages of the master plan are summarised in the appendices to the master plan committee report. The main issues raised by residents broadly fall into the following topic areas: policy compliance, residential amenity, design, highways and traffic, environmental, financial, community and other issues such as the need for the development. Highways and traffic issues are clearly the major concern. So the master plan identifies the primary vehicle access as a signal control junction from Penwitham Way, the A582. Secondary accesses will be onto Leyland Road via B Lane and Flag Lane, and to the south there will also be an access on Chain House Lane. A bus, cycle, pedestrian link is also proposed to the Kingsfold area. Section 6 of the master plan relates to access and movement and provides details of the site accesses with supporting diagrams. This shows the main access to the site off the A582 with the option for its future dualling. The proposed site access onto Leyland Road has both short-term and long-term options. This diagram demonstrates the short-term option to utilise B Lane and the existing railway bridge. And this shows the long-term option to link directly to the existing roundabout on Leyland Road via a new bridge over the railway. This shows the proposals to utilise the existing bridges on Flag Lane and onwards onto Leyland Road. And this shows the potential access onto Chain House Lane adjacent to Braid's Farm. And the potential bus, cycle, pedestrian access to Kingsfold between the community centre and its car park. This plan indicates a bus gate with proposed rising bollards and a CCTV system. So this plan is taken from the infrastructure delivery schedule and demonstrates the route of the Crossborough Link Road and its phasing. Blue is phase 1, a signal control junction from Penwitham Way delivered by the developer to access western and northwestern areas. Yellow is phase 2, delivered by a developer providing access to southeastern and southern areas. The pink dashed line is phase 3, delivered by the developer to access northeastern areas on land within their control. Includes short-term priority junction to B Lane and restricted to existing traffic plus 40 to 50 new dwellings. The orange dotted line is phase 4, to be delivered by a third-party developer or landowner or by South Ribble and or Lancashire County Council using CPO powers. And the brown line is phase 5, the final section of the Crossborough Link Road and new bridge over the West Coast Main Line to connect to Leyland Road roundabout. The new bridge delivered using SIL. So this is the phasing plan for each phase of development. No timescales are set in the infrastructure delivery schedule. However, it is envisaged that 4 or 5 separate developers will build out the site who could deliver between 30 and 150 dwellings per year in aggregate once planning permissions are granted. So just for clarity, the pink's the western phase, orange is the northwestern phase, beige is the northeastern phase, the grey is the southeastern phase, and the blue is the southern phase, which of course is the safeguarded land. So the site has also been divided, and the design code document provides details of 5 character areas: B Lane West, B Lane East, Heart of the Lanes, the Urban Edge and the Penwitham Edge. It includes a description of each area as existing and the proposals for each. As an example, for B Lane West, it advises that the area will include a primary school and takes its character reference from the existing dwellings, which are detached and semi-detached properties. There is no formal building line with properties set forward and back as the plots dictate. The typology is a mixture of 2 and 3 storey, predominantly red brick dwellings, giving the distinct and traditional character that should be preserved. The hard material palette will comprise of natural tones, render, buffs and greys, which knit with the existing architectural fabric on site. And that's just an example of one of the proposed character areas. So the master plan advises that the majority of the proposed housing will be 2 to 3 storey in height, with tallest 4-storey properties in key locations to promote good urban design. It proposes to incorporate higher density development both in the northwestern part of the site and around the new local centre. Apartments will be proposed in certain locations which could be up to 4-storey in height. This plan shows the existing properties buffered by the pink, which is up to 2 storeys. Section 7 is entitled Environmental and Site Considerations and advises on matters of ecology, trees, noise, air quality, flood risk and drainage, ground conditions and topography, the pylon corridor, landscaping resources. Section 7 also advises that a comprehensive range of environmental considerations have been taken into account in preparing this master plan, and technical assessments of the site have been undertaken by an experienced technical team. A summary of the findings of the assessments covering landscape, ecology, flood risk, noise, air quality, ground conditions, utilities and heritage and archaeology is included within this section, and technical statements on ecology, landscape and flood risk and drainage are included as appendices. The technical assessment concludes that once conventional mitigation is implemented, no constraints have been identified which will preclude the future development of this site. This is a plan of the hierarchy of green spaces proposed for the site. The majority is to the western side of the site under the existing electricity pylons, and this includes SUD's Sustainable Urban Drainage System. The proposals include a village green approach with walking routes, play areas and amenity green space. Enhanced sporting facilities are also proposed linking to the existing community centre. So Section 8 advises on both the physical and social infrastructure proposals. The master plan acknowledges that future residents will increase the demand for and use of infrastructure such as roads and public transport and social infrastructure, including schools and community facilities. The master plan advises the future development of the site will deliver the Crossborough Link Road, local highway network improvements, public transport improvements, footpaths, cycleways and bridleways, green infrastructure and public open space, affordable housing, a new local centre, education facilities, a drainage network including sustainable urban drainage systems. For example, a number of children's play areas are proposed as part of the POS, public open space, and the local centre will include a range of services and facilities for use of residents of the development and the surrounding area. The master plan advises the local centre could contain such services as convenience retail, farm shop, offices, pharmacy, gym, veterinary, surgery, dry cleaners and hairdressers. Initially, the master plan included an apprenticeship and skills centre with the potential to become a new community centre, but this was removed as Penwitham Town Council preferred option was for the improvement works to the existing centre together with new sports facilities as per the Penwitham Town Plan. The development of this site will be liable for payment of Community Infrastructure Levy, or CIL. Based on the estimated number of dwellings, the likely income arising through CIL could be over £9 million from the allocated site of C1. In addition, this site will also need to make Section 106 contributions for the following items: affordable housing, education, green infrastructure, sport and recreation, air quality and travel planning, off-site highway improvements, pedestrian and cycle network improvements, public transport improvements. The site is identified as contributing around 1,350 new homes and generating CIL, new homes bonus and Section 106 payments to fund infrastructure as part of the city deal. Finally, development of this major site is subject to an agreed master plan. Policy C1 is quite clear that planning permission will only be granted for the development of the Pickering's Farm site subject to an agreed master plan for the comprehensive development of the site, which must include the safeguarded land which extends to Coot Lane and make provision for a range of land uses to include residential, employment and commercial, green infrastructure and community facilities. In its current form, it is considered the master plan fails to provide for the comprehensive development of the site, which is crucial to ensure delivery of essential infrastructure and local services. Further information is necessary to demonstrate the master plan can and will deliver necessary and appropriate infrastructure and sustainable links with the connectivity in order to satisfy the policy. Therefore, it's recommended that members give due consideration of the master plan, design code and infrastructure delivery schedule, and then the decision be deferred in order that the developers can address the following concerns. The local highway authority with the aim of addressing the matters highlighted in their consultation response. Network Rail to address the use of the B Lane and Flag Lane railway bridges. Highways England to address issues of the impact on the strategic road network. The building heights parameter plan and the widespread use of 3- and 4-storey buildings. To provide certainty with regard to deliverability, especially with regard to key infrastructure such as highways, sustainable access, education, community facilities, sports provision and affordable housing, and any other concerns identified by the Planning Committee at this meeting. I'll now just hand you back to Jonathan to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Yeah, just to conclude, I think it's that last point I really want to emphasise, committee. I mean, clearly, committee need to make their own decision tonight. There is an officer recommendation basically to go away and deal with the issues that we have listed as officers, but I'm sure other issues will come up during discussion that you would like us to go away and talk to Taylor Wimpey and Homes England about. So it's just an ask that where you do highlight other issues than the ones we have listed. I think we need a really clear mandate and expectation of what committee would like to see on that. So it's just to have a polite request to say can we be as clear as possible so we can go away and actually try and achieve your aspirations for the site. Like I said earlier, this is an opportunity to properly shape this development. If you don't do it now, then it's too late. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Janice. Thanks, Jonathan. Right, I have 5 objectors wishing to speak on this application. I would like to call them in order. Hopefully they can hear and see us. Do we have a mic, Paul?
Yes, indeed.
If you'd like to present your objection, notwithstanding 4 minutes, please, if you can keep it as close to that as possible.
I'll try and keep it as short as possible. Chairman and committee members, the master plan leaves many questions unanswered. It is neither deliverable nor viable, and I will demonstrate this by focusing on infrastructure cost and delivery and adverse traffic impacts. It is clear that the link road is a key element in the master plan and the South Ribble local plan, and the link road is not complete without the new rail bridge. Yet the plan remains completely silent on the cost of the bridge, construction duration and phasing. More importantly, there is no indication of who takes ownership of the project and takes the commercial risk, including land purchase. We believe that a reasonable cost for the bridge is 13.2 million, as a similar bridge was built crossing the West Coast Main Line in Solihull in 2012. And final costs were estimated at 11.8 million. We believe it would take at least 17 years for sufficient sill to accrue from the development to cover the cost of the bridge. And in any case, using sill as a payment contravenes the City Deal heads of terms. A planning catch-22. The link road is critical to providing early site access, avoiding the wholly inappropriate use of a narrow single-track bridge. But it will take nearly 2 decades to accrue sill funds from the development to pay for the new bridge. Who provides the working capital? Who covers third-party land costs? Who takes the commercial risk? What is the alternative? Diverting 700 vehicles per hour onto narrow single-track bridges. These bridges are totally unsuitable, as highlighted by Network Rail, and at very least will require major structural remediation to provide an interim option. This is likely to cost well in excess of 1.5 million, and in the end, the B-lane bridges may require demolition, as it may interfere with the new bridge construction. Demolition may cost another $500,000. And reflect on this. There may be a period when the old bridge is demolished and the new bridge is under construction. What happens to site access then? And the City Deal partners are also liable for the balance of cost for the A582 widening. We believe the true cost of the project is 120 million plus, so South Ribble may be left with a further 23 million liability, also to be funded by SIL. So the total Borough Council potential infrastructure SIL liabilities are now £38 million plus. And do not forget current South Ribble City Deal liabilities totaling 70 million, the majority of which will also be funded from SIL. This level of debt and risk is not sustainable. It appears highly likely that the link road will not be completed in the foreseeable future, as no developer will take on the financial commitment and risk needed to bring forward construction of the bridge. And SIL income streams appear insufficient to fund construction. The financial viability of the A582 widening is also questionable, as it does not appear to meet Treasury tests to demonstrate value for money. Thus, the two key infrastructure strands do not appear deliverable in the foreseeable future when realistic costs are accounted for. Okay, I'll move on to traffic impacts. The Croft Edison Appendix C does not appear credible. It seriously underestimates permitted development impacts accounting for 6 developments when in fact there are 15. They have underestimated committed development housing by 40%. They appear to employ invalid traffic assessments for Cuerden, again seriously underestimating traffic impacts. They have used a single generic trip factor for all developments, which is counter to the DFT guidance. The trip factor appears low when the lack of public transport and retail access, poor cycling provision, local demographics and school locations are considered. This will further amplify underestimation of generated traffic. They also use a remarkably low 6% assignment of traffic to the motorway system. This is an unrealistic number and seriously underestimates the impact of current congestion in the vicinity of Cuerden. Highways England have also expressed concerns regarding the impact of the master plan and Cuerden on the strategic roads network, and their concerns, we believe, remain unanswered still. Croft assigned 44% of the master plan traffic to the B Lane and Flag Lane bridges, amounting to some 700 vehicles per hour. These bridges are single track and narrow, yet their analysis assumes two-way flow, which is clearly nonsense. And how do cyclists and pedestrians safely cross under those circumstances? They assume that the master plan development traffic will result in the A582 access junction operating at 74% capacity. However, they take no proper account of through traffic generated by the link road. So it is highly likely that the junctions at each end of the link road will become seriously congested. They conclude that the A582 junction with Chainhouse Lane will become seriously congested, with a queue of 59 vehicles developing on the A582 southbound. Their solution is to change the light phasing to push congestion onto Chainhouse Lane. They conclude that the Leyland Road junctions with B Lane and Flag Lane will become congested. A 58 vehicle tailback will occur at B Lane and a 32 vehicle tailback will occur on Flag Lane. Their solution is to signalise these junctions, but there is no estimation of the cost or impact. The impact on Leyland Road will be severe, increasing delays and pollution in an already congested road corridor. Even with underestimated figures, they predict that traffic on Leyland Road will increase by 34%, by 56% on Chainhouse Lane, and the traffic accessing the A582 M65 junction will increase by 30%. Given that the Leyland Road corridor currently suffers from very poor air quality, these numbers are deeply concerning, as they are very likely to be underestimated. There is no evaluation in Appendix C of the impact of generated traffic on CO2, air quality, road safety and traffic capacity.
Yeah, Mr. Ball, you need to finish, please, if you will.
Okay. It's no surprise that LCC Highways state that they do not accept traffic assessment given in Appendix C, nor do they accept validation of base models, nor do they agree with the forecast traffic assumptions. LCC Highways also state, while the applicant has considered and included their views in regard to permitted developments, a number of issues have been highlighted, and as presented, this is not acceptable. We conclude that infrastructure and traffic issues are so profound and so intractable that an economically acceptable solution is unlikely to be found. This master plan should be rejected as it is fundamentally flawed. It is not deliverable, viable or sustainable.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, can we have Carolyn Kay, please?
I'd like to speak about the ecology of the area. Chairman and members of the Planning Committee. Right from the outset, Keep B Lane Rural has opposed this master plan on ecological grounds, and should the plan be accepted, it would be the greatest single act of ecological vandalism to be sanctioned by any council. The assessment work carried out on behalf of Taylor Wimpey and Homes England is somewhat lacking, with the reader left aghast by the piecemeal approach and absence of any detail. 1/3 of the site has still not had any ecological surveys carried out, so how can any cohesive master plan be formulated until the full extent of the resident wildlife is known is of great concern to us. Following on from this, any master plan should be able to demonstrate a biodiversity net gain with figures of 25 to 30% presently being discussed in emerging policy. Even though we believe the developers have been informed of this on several occasions, we cannot see any data presented on predicted loss or anticipated net gain. The 10,000 linear metres of ancient hedgerows are a strong visual and ecological feature of the lanes in the area. Of these, 29% are classified as important and more than 50% are classified as species rich. Hooper's rule would mean that many are several hundred years old. The master plan merely states that these should be retained where possible. Agreement of this master plan would allow the developers to remove the whole lot if it was thought necessary. This valuable resource should and must be protected. The area lanes are also characterised by the profusion of arching trees, all in excess of 100 years old. Their distinct appearance even features in the developer's logo. Again, out of the hundreds of trees in the area, only 5 are marked for keeping, with the rest falling into the same open-ended condition of retain where possible. Replacing a 150-year-old tree with 2 new saplings is not sustainable development, and all the trees in excess of 100 years old should be protected from loss. It would appear from old maps that the ancient orchards at Lloyd's House Farm off Nib Lane is at least 127 years old, but realistically is considerably older. It covers a very large area and is noted as relatively large in comparison to other orchards in the county borough. Strange then that this natural England site of notable habitat did not feature in the developer's original ecological assessment, even though they did attach a map showing its location and hence its existence. This master plan now states that it will either be retained in situ or replaced on a single site elsewhere. This could be within the master plan area or on another suitable land outside of the master plan area under the control of the developers. This is a nonsense. Ancient orchards cannot simply be dug up and relocated. The tree root systems are far too deep and established for that to happen. This ancient habitat should be protected and restored for generations to come. The strange omission of this sizeable feature gives a flavour of how the reports to date have been carried out by the developers. As a further example, take the bat surveys. These were carried out towards the end of August and into September, this being the latest time in the year that a survey can be done due to the bats going into hibernation and their resultant low activity. On the 31st of August 2019, a disgruntled team of bat inspectors arrived at the site. They were not overly happy at the prospect of having to stay out all night, especially as it was a Saturday night, but they were told that it had to be done on that specific date. Despite this, 6 different species of bats were found, 4 rated as common, 2 rare species and 1 species listed as unidentified. Therefore, we suggest that all bat surveys should be carried out again, covering the entire site and at a more reasonable time of year for bat activity. My particular field of interest and expertise is hedgehogs, and I found the master plan sadly lacking in any mitigation for their declining numbers. We know Pickering's Farm to be a particular hotspot for hedgehogs, and South Ribble cannot afford to lose this valuable habitat, especially if they've been officially flagged as vulnerable to extinction.
Could you finish up now, Carolyn Kerr, please?
Time restraints prevent me from including more detail, but our concerns echo those identified by the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit in their detailed assessment, which I believe you've been sent. The master plan and its associated applications contravene South Wales Policy 8 1360. And I'd like to remind the Planning Committee of the World's aspirations carbon neutral by 2030 and the government's commitments under its 25-year environment plan to develop nature recovery networks. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I'd just like to point out to the remaining 3 objectors that your time is going to be reduced because Mr. Ball overran by 3 minutes and Ms. Kay overran by 2 minutes, so it will be reduced respectively. All right, do we have Peter Hambleton? Do we have a Peter Hambleton wishing to speak? No? Okay, do we have a Deborah Harding? Deborah Harding, are you muted? No? Okay, and do we have a Graham Eastham?
Yes, Chair, can you hear me?
All right, we can hear you now, yes.
Sorry, Chair, I was having problems. Good evening, everybody. When considering the master plan regarding further development around Pickering's Farm, one must realise that the health and social care in the area will be insufficient to meet the needs of the people who live on the proposed site and the current people living there. The master plan highlights, and the response from the council is that the CCG NHS provides a list of practices that will be affected by the development of the site. They advise that the average number of practices per GP is approximately 1,700, with the exception of the village surgery. All practices in this area are now exceeded that in patient numbers. So obviously there's not going to be enough GP practices. The committee members need to be mindful of the impact on such large development will have in our communities. When we seek support from services for our loved ones and ourselves in the future, will we be readily able to access GP surgeries, secondary care services, hospital appointments, etc. Having high levels of pollution in the area that you live in can result in illnesses such as asthma, COPD, pneumonia, strokes or premature birth. This could not be something that we have to worry about on a daily basis. The national statistics for England have documented that there are 40,000 deaths every year as a result of respiratory diseases. Of this, 10 to 15% are children under the age of 19 that have died. Ask yourselves, do you consider this to be a public health crisis? Because I know that I do. And I know that it is unacceptable that these figures are still increasing each year. We need serious measures to clean up the air, such as diesel scrappage, better public transport and more cycle lanes could all have a significant impact. Unfortunately, the master plan falls short on all these accounts. To simply enjoy a walk in the last scrap of countryside we have near us should not be too much to ask. Pickering's Farm acts as the lungs of the area, providing fresh air, a readily available escape from the stresses of everyday life. It is essential that this community and for the mental health and well-being of the community, that this valuable resource remains, because this will reduce visits to the GP and visits to secondary care services, allowing individuals in the area to manage their own mental health. We've all heard of the case of Ella Kitty Deborah, who died from asthma back in 2013. Her mother and her human rights lawyer continue to fight the case and to want to get air pollution recognised on her death certificate. Professor Stephen Hogan, leading expert on asthma and air pollution, found that there was a striking association between Ella's emergency hospital admissions and recording of
Yeah, Deborah, you need to tie up now. You've just gone over 4 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I also wanted to point out that as a result of this, the crime is going to rise in the area of this development, and also that there's not, on the master plan for me, there's not sufficient
yeah, I really need you to tie up now, Deborah.
I therefore ask tonight to both development due to the lack of infrastructure and resources.
Yeah, Deborah, I need you to tie up now.
I've got two lines. He would live on the surrounding area. To consider, given the community's ability to decide. Okay, thank you.
No, I can't. Okay, thanks for that, Deborah. I'm now going to bring in, firstly, Graham Eastham.
Yes, good evening.
And after that, it would be Peter Hambleton if there's any time left. Okay, Graham, if you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak against this master plan. Pickering's Farm is 272 acres of ancient farmland that sits between the two communities of Penwitham and Loster Call. It was identified as a possible location for housing as early as the 1970s, but it's remained undeveloped to this day due to the unique set of circumstances and conditions that makes the access and development very difficult. With huge sites already being completed in the locality, LCC Highways are already questioning how sustainable and hence how suitable this site now is. For the layperson, this particular application is extremely confusing, comprised of a master plan application, an outline planning application for 1,100 houses, and an application for the Crossborough Link Road. I'm sure the developer's tactics for applying in such a way will be made obvious in due course. The difficulties the site presents have long been recognised as such, and so policy C1 of the current local plan is quite clear that planning permission will only be granted for the development of the Pickering's Farm site, subject to the submission of an agreed master plan for the comprehensive development of the site. Policy A2 is also extremely clear. Land will be protected from physical development for the delivery of the Crossborough Link Road, a road to be constructed through the major development at Pickering's Farm, shown diagrammatically as we saw previously on Janice's presentation. But it links the Causey direct to the A52, clearly spanning the West Coast Main Line. Policy A1 is also very clear that the developers are expected to contribute to the infrastructure through 106 and SIL. So, put simply, any developer wishing to submit a master plan for Pickering's Farm should include a viable project for completing the Crossborough Link Road. Policies G8, 13 and 16 detail how the natural environment should be dealt with whilst carrying out these things. Statutory consultees, my colleagues at Keep Bee Lane Rural and the case officers have all raised grave concerns at this current master plan. LCC Highways are particularly damning in Appendix J, as are the findings of the GMEU and the lack of any metrics on net gain biodiversity. Network Rail has a strong objection. Highways England are also extremely concerned at the lack of information provided to them and the potential impact of the strategic road network at Cuerden, and the environmental officer's projection paints a bleak picture of the adverse impact on the local community. The lack of information and detail is a common thread that exists in every objection within this master plan, appearing as an afterthought to the other two planning applications. Rather than starting from a position of what is necessary for this master plan and then addressing how it will be delivered, the master plan development has been primarily focused on presenting an approach which satisfies the objectives of Taylor Wimpey and Homes England and their current submitted outline for the 1,100 dwellings. Such a poorly thought out master plan that so dramatically exacerbates the current air pollution and traffic congestion, along with a flagrant disregard for the natural environment, is particularly disappointing from Homes England, given it's a public funded government body. If piecemeal development were allowed to happen on this site, it would seriously prejudice the council's prime objective of completing the Crossborough Link Road and cohesive sustainable development of the whole site. Our experts have expressed disbelief in this master plan submission and have described it as the most incomplete, unsustainable, car-centric carbuncle they have ever seen. This then begs the question of how bad and incomplete does a master plan submission have to be before it's rejected? It's clearly complacent or possible arrogance to send in an incomplete proposal and hope that the consultees will fill in the blanks. What message does a deferment send to other would-be developers? Members of the Planning Committee, I encourage you to send the right message to developers that South Ribble will not waste valuable time considering piecemeal applications that at best pays lip service to the objectives of the local plan and at worst puts the health and well-being of the local residents at risk. On these grounds, I hope you will move to reject this master plan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Graham Easton.
The last speaker was exactly 4 minutes.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Is that Peter Hambleton?
It is.
Okay, would you like to make your presentation?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief and keep within my time. I have lived and worked on Bee Lane for 20 years. I've first-hand knowledge of land and drainage. This area is known to flood regularly. The ground is multiple and has a very high water flow. There is very little natural infiltration and surface water drainage network of ditches and culverts across the whole site. emptying into Millbrook and then into the River Ribble. Pumping floodwater further along Millbrook is not a solution. The flood risk assessment does not take into account the tidal and flood nature of the River Ribble, and hence the backing up of the Millbrook tributary. I see it every winter. River Ribble high water, Millbrook cannot empty, water backs up, ditches and culverts spill out into saturated fields, causing ponding and widespread flooding of the land and roads. Flooding which became much more prevalent with the building of the A582. The majority of Pickering Farm then became a basin, bounded by the West Coast Main Line to the east, Kingsfold to the north, and the A582 to the west and south. The master plan states, and I quote, "Drainage of existing properties to septic tanks is to be retained." That would mean over 40 septic tank topwater outflows into ditches and newly created attenuation ponds throughout the proposed development. This would be unprecedented in any development, let alone one on this huge scale. The general public need to obtain planning permission just to change their lawns into block paving or tarmac because of the known increase to flood risk that this would pose. Yet a proposed development on this scale, with all the associated concrete, tarmac and buildings, is predicted to have little effect. It is proposed to increase the level of the footings on the new properties to negate the flood risk to the development. Well, what about existing residents? This will increase flood risk to our properties. Imagine the height of a 4-storey building on raised foundations and the impact of that superimposed on this existing rural community. It is outrageous that the flood risk and drainage assessment has been carried out on behalf of the developer. It should surely be done on behalf of South Ribble Borough Council and Lancashire County Council. I feel sure the outcome would be quite different and show this area is wholly unsuitable for a development on this scale. The existing lanes are single track and very few passing places, mainly unlit and no footpaths, yet they are proposing an extra 40 to 50 properties would be accessed off B Lane, and that's only short term. I find it astonishing that there's been no impact assessment carried out on the existing lanes, local roads and properties by construction traffic for the next 15 to 20 years. Why not? The proposed Crossborough Link Road does not meet Policy A2 requirements, i.e. a road to be constructed between the Causey and the 582. Policy G5 AS3 would not be complied with, i.e. there would be no area of separation between Gloucester Hall and Penwitham. And despite what Taylor Wimpey and Homes England tell you, there has been no personal consultation with me or any existing residents that are not stakeholders. A new bridge over the West Coast Main Line is merely an aspiration and will likely never materialise. The Crossborough Link Road cannot be realised without a new bridge. Developers have been buying options on land in this area for 20 years, but housing has always been refused until a new bridge and full Crossborough Link Road are in place. Well, what's changed? Nothing. If anything, with current environmental issues, climate change, flooding, pollution and traffic congestion, South Ribble Borough Council should be dismissing huge sprawling developments on greenfield sites and concentrate on brownfield sites and sustainable smaller plots spread throughout the borough. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter Hambleton. All right, we did have a supporter, one Ted Clayton, but he's withdrawn. So I will now call on members not on committee, and I've got them listed in order. Councillor Paul Foster.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, and good evening to members of the Planning Committee. As we all know, there is a fine, delicate balance between being pro-development, which I am, but protecting the environment for our residents. Residents who elect us to administer this borough on their behalf. Having read the submission in great detail, I fail to understand, Mr. Chairman, how this site could ever be sustainable without a significant £200 million plus infrastructure investment prior to any houses being constructed. I don't believe this will ever happen, and that's just for starters.
We have clear, detailed objections and concerns submitted by County Highways, Highways England, Network Rail, the Environmental Health Officer, Ecology, just to name a few. The air quality would be destroyed. Our roads within South Ribble would be log-jammed. I do not intend to speak to you about specific material planning considerations that many before me have already done. You will also have picked up on all these already. There are many. I will, however, continue to speak as leader of this council on behalf of the residents of Lostock Hall, Farrington and Penwortham who have spoken to me. This master plan is wholly inappropriate, unsustainable and clearly would introduce to the local communities untold misery for upwards of 15 years plus. As local elected representatives, we all have a duty to ensure the best interests of our local community at all times. A duty, Mr. Chairman. These plans do not meet the required standards, are not policy compliant and would destroy the livelihoods of many. As I mentioned earlier, there is a fine delicate balance between being pro-development but still protecting the environment for our residents. However, here, for me, the decision is really simple. These plans should be thrown out. Just because a site is allocated within the local plan does not mean material planning considerations should be ignored. Flooding, highways, ecology, massing, air quality. I urge the committee to stand by the local community, stand by our local planning policies and make the only appropriate decision. Refusal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Foster. I now have Councillor Matthew Trafford.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I begin what I'd originally written, I just think I better address the factual inaccuracies that were mentioned at the start of the meeting by Councillor Yates. I've just read the part of the manifesto he's referred to, and in no way, shape or form is that what it says that he described. I have every confidence in my Labour colleagues on committee that they'll make a decision based on evidence and do so honestly. The only area of caution that I would offer is to those who make factually inaccurate statements in public meetings. I've waited almost 2 years now to be able to speak on this issue since I was selected as one of the Labour Party candidates, and I'm glad that I'm able to do so. I've spoken with the residents for some time, and I think it's only fair that I recognise their efforts and organisation whilst I'm speaking tonight. They've spoken extremely passionately tonight, but not just passionately, also very accurately, and they should be commended for that. So for the avoidance of any doubt, I want to talk about air pollution. Public Health England released a document in 2019, and I'm quoting this directly, which said, air pollution in the UK is the biggest environmental threat to our health, with between 28,000 and 36,000 deaths a year. So with this application relating to only down the road from one of our air quality management areas, which is in my ward, I don't think that this is just a matter of NIMBYism, which I was accused of on social media a few weeks ago, but actually a genuine fear for the health and well-being of Lostock Hall residents. This report has a common theme throughout it, and that's about the air quality implications in almost all aspects. And it's very easy to see why. So if we have 2,000 houses being built, and each of them, generally speaking, are going to have 2 cars, and we've got around an extra 4,000 cars in the area, in an already chronically congested area, and as a result, that's where we have the air pollution. There have been times in my own experience when I've drove from Lostock Hall to Higher Penwortham and back, and in that time I could have drove to Blackpool and back. So that should just give you an idea of how bad it is, and of course the air quality that follows. I haven't even begun to try and explain the impact that this will have on the doctor surgeries in schools, which are already on the knees. I think that that's pretty self-explanatory, and I don't want to insult people's intelligence by explaining what the issues there are. But of course, we do need housing, and we need it to be affordable. Councillor Foster made an excellent point about the fine line that we have to balance ourselves on. But that can't take place in inappropriate places on green spaces next to areas with air quality management areas. Air quality management areas that breach national standards, by the way. I think it will be entirely counterproductive to allow this in a borough that's committed to tackling air pollution and committed to protecting our green spaces. And I hope that based on those arguments, the committee makes the right decision tonight, and that's to reject. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Trafford. Councillor Michael Green.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I thank everybody that's spoken for taking a lot of attention to this matter. Chairman and colleagues, I have a number of concerns with the master plan which are before us this evening, and I don't object in principle to development on this site, as I'm sure, I'd like to think all councillors wouldn't object, as it's been supported unanimously previously as part of the local plan. But having said that, there are significant concerns with the master plan before us. I'm concerned about the scale and size of the development, particularly the 3 and 4 storey developments, which I think are totally out of character in this part of South Ribble. But if any development comes forward, I would suggest that the more rural areas near Bee Lane and to the south of the site are protected in terms of having bungalows and 2-storey developments rather than anything of 3 and 4 storeys. The biggest concern, clearly, Chairman, is from an highways perspective, and the objections have come in from Highways England and from Lancashire County Council's Highways Department. And from my personal perspective, I think before a master plan can be approved, we need clarity over the railway bridge issue, that can be provided, and we need clarity that the funding will be provided for the all-important dualling of the A582 and the B5253. The proposals that are before us this evening, to me, do not demonstrate a sustainable site moving forwards, and significant work needs to be done to get us to a stage where it would be sustainable. From a perspective of the parish council, I'm a parish councillor, Chairman, and they raise a number of objections, some of which are reported to you in the report, some have not been, and so I'll pick up on some of those as well. First and foremost, the master plan includes the full site, as it needs to do under the local plan. But the southernmost section of this site is safeguarded land, as has been referred to by the planning officer. That means that it's been safeguarded for development at some point in the future, but at no point has South Ribble Borough Council agreed to this being developed now, and the parish council certainly hasn't, and has formally objected to the designation being changed to allow development. In fact, they've asked for it to be protected. But moving on from that, Coot Lane and Chainhouse Lane are not a suitable access points for hundreds of vehicles coming in and out of this site. The parish council and myself are concerned over the lack of public transport. For instance, Farrington Curve wraps round the site, and yet what is missing but a proposed railway station? And in my view, it needs to be if we want sustainable transport options for residents that are going to be living on this site. I'm concerned about the impacts on air quality, as has been alluded to by colleagues previously. Flooding is an issue which the parish council has, and I think that's basically it. I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Chairman, but my recommendation to yourself and colleagues is that we should not be supporting this master plan at this stage, and I would recommend that it's deferred to allow much more work to be done to allow us to bring this master plan up to a stage where colleagues can consider adopting it. Thank you for your time, and I wish you well.
Thanks for that, Councillor Green. Do we have Councillor Colin Clark?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to waste any more time for the committee now, because I think all the objectors have raised the issues that I was going to raise, particularly in relation to highways. I just wanted to say really that I was party, as many of other councillors were, to actually voting for this to be included in the local plan, and therefore I think at the time the problems which have been raised now were problems which were identified, and I'm sure these can be overcome in the future, and this land which is in the local plan is important for South Ribble's development in the future to meet its housing targets. Otherwise we'll have problems. So I'm sure the officers are right to raise the issues which I have read in the report, and I concur with all the points that they have made, and I agree with what the objectors have said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Karen Walton.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chair, and thank you for everyone who has spoken tonight. I'm here tonight as Ward Councillor for Farrington West Ward and also as a Farrington Parish Councillor concerning the area S2 allocated land as safeguarded to the south of the Lakes Development Master Plan, which, in my opinion, should be protected. Also, in my opinion, there appears to be a little reference in the master plan concerning the access from Chainhouse Lane and the impact of this part of the development on the potential amount of traffic generated by building up to 250 dwellings, with the only access being onto narrow rural roads. The proposed access point on Chainhouse Lane would have a considerable detrimental effect on existing and new residents and would change the rural character of this area forever. Chainhouse Lane is a rural single-lane carriageway extending west to a junction on the A582 Penwortham Way and east onto Coot Lane over a single-laned only access railroad bridge around a mini roundabout and onto a junction at the B5254 Leyland Road. The speed limit varies on these lanes from 20 to 40 miles per hour, and the footways along the road vary from both sides of the road to narrow paths on one side or to paths on both sides of the road. The master plan appears to concentrate on the access lanes from B Lane of 40 to 50 dwellings and from Flag Lane with access for up to 125 dwellings, accessing the B5254 Leyland Road. The congestion and delays experienced daily by users of Leyland Road and the impact of the new dwellings will have a considerable detrimental effect on the capabilities of all the local roads. The increase in traffic from the access point on Chainhouse Lane for the 250 dwellings has not really been considered in the same way as the other access points. Chainhouse Lane, Coot Lane, Church Lane, Croston Road leading to Jubilee Road will certainly be operating beyond their safety capacity with the predicted increase of the traffic from the development. Chainhouse Lane is subject to severe traffic congestion at peak times as traffic builds up on the A582 junction, and until the dualling of the A582 is completed, any house building or industrial development, of which there are a number already in my ward, should be deferred until the infrastructure is complete and access to the S2 site should be onto the Crossborough Link Road or the A582 directly, not from Chainhouse Lane. Until the site of the village centre is complete, hopefully with health facilities, a school and shops, residents will have to travel to or through the area of Gloucester Cole Tardigate to access health services and schools, which are both already struggling with capacity issues. This is also the preferred route to the motorway for motorists avoiding hold-ups on the A582. It also provides access to local shops and to the Gloucester Cole railway station. These rural road routes are totally unsuitable for the predicted increase in traffic from the development and are already used as rat runs to avoid the A582. The public transport from this site is provided by an hourly service to Leyland or Preston with no service on a Sunday, and the service does not provide a route to the local shops, health services or schools. Although this S2 site is not subject to an air quality management order, being approximately 1.5 kilometres from an existing air quality management area, the air quality management area of Gloucester Cole Tardigate has been monitored since 2005.
Can you tie up, Councillor Walton, please?
And according to DEFRA figures, has the highest levels of nitrogen dioxide pollutants in the borough. The impact of the increasing volume of traffic causing congestion, standing and idling traffic at the Three Port Junction in this air quality management area would have considerable detrimental effect on the health of the residents in all the surrounding areas. Finally, I have considerable concerns over the development plans to direct surface water into Millbrook, which has a history of flooding and is connected to the River Ribble and could cause the problem of flooding in the area to be exacerbated. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Walton. I now have Councillor Carol Wooldridge, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I need to apologise that nobody can see me, but maybe actually that's better that you can't at the moment. I'd like to just say that I should have declared an interest as part of my interest that I'm also a member of Pemberton Town Council, and I'm actually the ward councillor for Charnock Ward. I wish to speak against the master plan, and I've listened tonight to a lot of people talking, and I have to say that I'm very proud to be ward councillor for Charnock, because I think the residents have brought together a really, really good argument against this master plan. I've listened to them before, I've read their objections, and I can understand, I realise and understand the hours of research and work they've put into this for years, because this has been hanging over them for years. I fully agree with everything they've raised and wholeheartedly support them. I would just like to add a few of my own objections, but I do have to say if you look at page 94 on this big document, my objections form most of what Pemberton Town Council have put forward as their objections. We actually drew up a neighbourhood development plan in 2016. I was part of the working group for that plan. And in particular, Policy 4, Policy 6, Policy 7 and Policy 8 are dealt with in this master plan, but they're not dealt with properly. They've looked at some of the policy, but they haven't looked at all of it, and they certainly don't seem to have looked at the supporting statements. So Policy 4 is for 10% of the development for retirement buildings. We did put in the supporting statement that we wanted bungalows. Since the pandemic, I think we need to be looking at isolating old people in apartments. That's part of that, and you can read that yourselves. Policy 6 is for additional sporting facilities. We don't have a lot of sporting facilities around here, and if we're going to get that big development, those facilities need extended, not enhanced, they need extended. The community centre was always going to be extended. We were talking to the developers to have some kind of a partnership with them. The first we knew about them not going to be in partnership with us to do something about a community centre together was when this plan came out. It had nothing to do, them taking the plan out had nothing to do with Pemberton Town Council, and we had nothing to do with them not taking the apprenticeship scheme on board. I'd just like to put that into perspective. Policy 8 is to do with the walking and cycling. There's supposed to be a walking and cycling route that we are planning to do. Part of that is Bee Lane. I wonder why. I think probably because it's a beautiful lane to walk down, and I've been down there once again myself today, which I've done quite a lot while I've lived here over the past 40 years. And the comments that have been made tonight about traffic down there, yes, it's not good, and about the land, etc. My thing that people haven't brought up tonight, and I know they'll know about it, I know they'll think about it, is actually the health and safety of our cyclists, our walkers, our parents pushing prams, taking the children out on the bikes, dog walkers, as I said, dog walkers, all those people. And there are a number of them, and they have increased over the last 5 months, because this is my role in the repair.
Councillor Wooldridge, you need to tie up now, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair, and I will do. All I need to say now is please, I beg to think about the residents, think about that master plan and what's wrong with it. I don't think it should be deferred. I just think it needs to be completely refused. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your time, Councillor Wooldridge. I now have Councillor Ian Watkinson.
Thanks, Chair, and apologies. There must be something going on in our ward because my video's not working either. But thanks everyone, to all the residents who've spoken and fellow councillors for all their excellent contributions speaking against this proposal. And for anyone watching on YouTube who don't know me, my name is Councillor Ian Watkinson, and alongside Councillor Wooldridge, I've been very proud to be the local ward councillor in Charnock for about 5.5 years now. In that time, no other issue has dominated resident concerns on such a scale in Charnock like the proposed development of Pickering's Farm. And resident fears and concerns, as we've heard tonight, are as serious and deeply held now as they've ever been. Others have talked about the many, many issues that make this proposal not viable. I just want to briefly focus on the potentially awful impact on our residents living directly under this proposed master plan on and around Bee Lane. Some of the residents are in the selling consortium having fields to sell, but others are not. If this was to go ahead, it would mean construction on all 4 sides of many properties and spanning a period of between 10 to 15 years for phase 1 and a further 10 years for phase 2, effectively committing existing residents to living on a building site for the next 20 to 25 years. Think about that. I mean, Buckshaw was supposed to be finished in 5 years, but it's still being constructed 16 years later. This will mean constant noise from pile drivers, banging, cement mixers, power tools, airborne dust and construction particles for just a totally unacceptable length of time. Now, I know the construction period is normally not considered as a material consideration, but due to the unique nature and scale of this development, the residents feel, and I feel, it would be totally unacceptable to not consider the impact on the existing residents directly under the site. The residents feel that they've been neglected somewhat by the planning process, as in usual applications, disruption from construction is not considered material, but a master plan of this scale, however flawed it is far from usual, and we would argue that special considerations should have been concluded in the recommendations in the local plan. The ecological impact assessment was, 413 pages long. There's not a single paragraph in there about what was happened to local residents at the heart of this massive development, and even the water bowls got 11 pages. Myself and Councillor Wooldridge represent those families on that site. Many are elderly, some live alone, but all are scared, and they are scared with their lives effectively on hold. The worry they have if they will ever be able to sell their property, and if so, for what price. They're worrying about the effect on their health, their well-being, and living on a building site for what, for most of them, will actually be the rest of their lives. So given the threat of this appalling situation, we'd like the planning committee to consider, well, I was going to ask you to place special conditions to any acceptance or deference of the master plan, but I'd urge you to reject this master plan. Let's not waste any more time on this, and let's put every resident in focus, not just the wider community, but those residents who are right there who are going to be impacted by this. Thanks very much, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Watkinson. All right, I now have 5 representatives of the applicants and agent, and I'm going to bring in first John Suckley from Avison Young.
Good evening. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can all hear you. We can all hear you here.
Excellent. Good evening. I'm John Suckley from Avison Young. I'm the planning agent acting on behalf of Homes England and Taylor Wimpey, and I've acted on behalf of the developers since 2010 to promote this site. The site has been earmarked for major residential.
Yeah, can you just hold a minute? We're trying to adjust the sound here. If you can just move further away from your microphone for us. Thanks for that. Just try again now.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Excellent. The site has been earmarked for major residential-led development for a significant period of time. It forms part of the land south of Penwortham and north of Farrington strategic location, identified in the 2012 Central Lancashire Core Strategy, and is allocated as a major site for development under Policy C1 of the 2015 South Ribble Local Plan. This evening, members are being asked to consider the site-wide master plan prepared by the developers with your officers and consultee organisations since 2018. The role of the master plan is to supplement the council's adopted development plan policies and guide future development within the master plan area. Once endorsed, the master plan will become a material consideration in the determination of all future planning applications relevant to the wider site. The master plan has been prepared in accordance with the requirements of Local Plan Policy C1 and proposes the comprehensive development of the site, includes the land allocated as a major site for development and the safeguarded land to Coit Lane, makes provision for a range of land uses including residential, employment, commercial, green infrastructure and community facilities, and comprises a design code and an infrastructure delivery schedule. An integral part of the master plan is the Crossborough Link Road, and in accordance with Local Plan Policy 2, A2, the master plan protects land from the development for the link road connecting to Penwortham Way to the Causey. The developers have undertaken extensive consultation with the council, local community, key stakeholders and consultee organisations throughout the master plan preparation. This began with an initial visioning consultation in July 2018 when 2 public exhibition events were held, following which a draft master plan was prepared. Members endorsed the draft master plan for a consultation at Planning Committee in November 2018, and consultation on the draft master plan took place between November 2018 and January 2019, which included 2 further public exhibition events. The developers' consultation has also included a series of one-to-one meetings with residents who live on the site, steering group meetings with council members and representatives from Penwortham Town Council, and detailed dialogue with SRBC and LCC officers and key stakeholders including LCC Education, Network Rail and the CCG. The developers fully understand and respect the comments made by the local community and where possible have sought to address issues raised. We really do appreciate the comments made by local residents about construction. Construction will be phased and the developers will employ considerate construction techniques and will work with the residents on site to minimise any disruption or disturbance on existing properties. Your officer's report reflects the significant level of consultation undertaken by the developers and recognises that the developers have fully sought to engage the public at all stages of the master plan process. A revised version of the master plan was submitted to the council in August 2020 and set out in the officer's report. The changes proposed in the revised master plan have resulted in agreement on, firstly, the location of the 2-form entry primary school, which is accessed off a secondary road and includes a car park drop-off area requested by LCC Education, who raised no objections. Secondly, the location of the drainage areas to the north and west of the site, and no objections are raised by the local lead flood authority, United Utilities and the Environment Agency. Thirdly, the position of the local centre and the proposed mix of retail, community and employment uses. Fourthly, the proposed improvements to existing sports facilities adjoining the Penwortham Community Centre, and no objections are raised by Sport England. Fifthly, the amount of green infrastructure, including public open space, landscaping, children's play areas and the location of Village Green. Sixthly, the proposed extension to the Penwortham Community Centre. And lastly, the design, scale and mix of uses set out within the design code. You will now hear from Homes England and other members of the development team. I would like to thank members for their time and respectfully request that you vote in line with your officer's recommendation to defer the master plan. This will allow for further discussion to take place with LCC Highways, Network Rail, Highways England and your officers to address the narrowed issues which have been identified in the officer's report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that, John. We'll now bring in Nicola Ellsworth from Homes England.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can all hear you fine here.
Great.
Nicola, thank you.
I'm Nicola Ellsworth and I'm Head of Planning and Enabling at Homes England. I would like to start by saying that South Ribble Borough Council is one of the most important local authority partners for Homes England, having worked with the council over a long period of time and given the presence of so much of our land in the borough. We've benefited from a long-standing and excellent collaborative working relationship, having worked together over many years to support delivery of your local plan, even appearing at examination in public together. This successful collaboration has further translated into delivery, where we have a strong track record of bringing forward many large and small sites, including, for example, the Hospital Crossing site, Old Carr Lane and Croston Road South, as well as helping to support the delivery of the Walton Park Link Road. Homes England has invested a huge amount of resource and capital into the borough. To date, that totals £8.8 million, generating over 1,000 new homes, of which around 200 are affordable, with on-site contributions being made in lieu of on-site delivery where requested. A total of 300 of those 1,000 new homes have been built to date. With regards to those sites I've mentioned, Homes England's approach has been to work within the council's adopted policy, where we've sought to deliver high quality placemaking. We've also been able to facilitate the payment of significant developer contributions. As you know, we are a City Deal partner. No other arrangement exists with government that is the same as your City Deal. Homes England has 11 sites in the deal and we're contributing £37.5 million of grant funding and associated developer contributions into the deal. This investment is helping South Ribble and the other partners to deliver a range of much needed infrastructure to support economic and residential growth, which will be a benefit to both the existing community and new residents. This is a unique and successful delivery mechanism that's held up as a good example of partnership working and delivery within Homes England and government. With regards to the Pickering's Farm site, Homes England has a substantial land interest alongside Taylor Wimpey. Homes England is the housing delivery arm of the government, and the government is currently dealing with the national housing crisis. Homes England is committed to bringing this site forward, and there are a range of benefits the master plan will deliver. These include 2,000 new market and affordable homes, new local services including a primary school and local centre, community uses including the delivery of good quality connected green infrastructure corridors and open spaces to help deliver the council's ambitions on green networks, and new employment, including 200 construction jobs per year, 265 full-time equivalent direct operational jobs per year, and 174 indirect jobs off-site per year, just from the development on Homes England and Taylor Wimpey's land alone. Taylor Wimpey has also been in discussions with Preston College, and a temporary training and apprenticeship facility will be provided on site during their construction phase. The site has been allocated for many years, and there is a need for it to come forward given the emerging local plan. Homes England Taylor Wimpey are committed to working collaboratively with the council and local residents to bring the site forward, and the master plan is the required blueprint for doing so, as well as ensuring we collectively set some strong placemaking principles at the master plan stage. We do appreciate there is public concern, and we're committed to delivering the best possible scheme at this site. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your time, Nicola. Do we have a Phil Williscroft from Edison's?
You do, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine, thank you.
Lovely.
Would you like to present? Thank you.
Oh, well, good evening, members and Chair. My name is Phil Williscroft, and I'm a partner at Croft Edisons, who have advised Taylor Wimpey and Homes England on the transport and highways issues relating to the master plan. I've had extensive experience in residential development and have advised numerous landowners, developers and house builders across the country over the past 25 years. The various elements of the master plan have been discussed extensively with the local highway authorities, Lancashire County Council and Highways England. These discussions have been ongoing from well before the master plan was submitted and are continuing. This has included a number of meetings and correspondence, and we have agreed a number of elements already with regards to the master plan. Positive discussions are continuing with both highway authorities with a view to agree the finer details of the traffic modelling and any required off-site highways improvements and potential transport contributions. More recent discussions with Network Rail have also been positive. They confirmed when we met them last week that they have no issues with the additional traffic that up to 50 houses would generate across the B Lane Bridge, and that the principle of a new bridge in connection to Leyland Road was acceptable. The issue of the impact on Flag Lane is ongoing, and they are carrying out some investigation of the current state of the bridges and associated parapets before confirming their views. The main vehicular access will be from the A582 Penwortham Way via a new signalised junction with full cycle and pedestrian facilities. As you've heard already, there's two options for this junction, one with and one without the dualling of the A582. Both have been agreed in principle with LCC. Additional accesses to the site will be provided via B Lane to the northeast, Flag Lane to the east, Kingsfold Drive to the north, and for sustainable transport only, and Coop Lane, Chainhouse Lane to the safeguarded land to the south. This will be restricted to around about 250 to 300 units. However, it should be noted that the B Lane and Flag Lane accesses may provide limited access to the overall site for general traffic, acting primarily as limited use residential access roads, cycling and pedestrian access. This strategy will be managed on site through careful consideration of measures that will control traffic flow throughout the site, and in particular on the existing lanes that exist already. These interventions are being discussed with both LCC and Network Rail, with a view to these being agreed in the coming weeks. Two options for access onto B Lane, a short-term and long-term vision, which Janice has already been through with you. Both of those have been discussed in the master plan, and I don't intend to go through those in detail now. The inclusion of a short and long-term option for B Lane demonstrates that the master plan will not prejudice the completion of the new bridge across the West Coast Main Line. Consultation with South Ribble and Lancashire County Councils on the alignment of the Crossborough Link Road extension will continue to ensure that it will not preclude connection across the West Coast Main Line in the longer term. This vehicular access route between Penwortham Way and B Lane will be phased throughout the wider development, and consultation with both councils on the site access options will continue. A further vehicular link to the northwest of the site towards Kingsfold Drive utilises land currently owned by South Ribble Council. This is shown to the northwest corner of the master plan and has been requested by LCC to provide a more sustainable development on the site. This will allow a potential bus route into the Kingsfold Drive area, together with further key pedestrian and cycle linkages to the surrounding area. This is envisaged at this stage to provide a sustainable transport link between the site and Kingsfold Drive and will not be open to private vehicles. In terms of the internal layout and the CBLR, and in particular the route, this has been subject to a number of discussions between the County Council and the development team, and amendments have been made during the pre-application and post-submission process. As you will be aware, the A582 Penwortham Way is proposed to be dual, including the section immediately to the west of this site. Planning application is currently live and is, I understood, due for determination later this year. This provides substantial capacity improvements along the A582 corridor and allows a reassignment of traffic away from the Leyland Road corridor onto the A582 route. Whilst this scheme is of substantial benefit to the area as a whole, this proposal is not reliant on the dualling coming forward. Land is protected / safeguarded for the CBLR and the bridge in the master plan in accordance with policy A2. Developers will be delivering parts of the CBR on land they control, which has already been discussed, but showing the entire length bridge plus the bridge to be safeguarded in accordance with the policy. The CBLR extension will be delivered in phases from west to east across the site. A signal control junction is proposed on Penwortham Way, which will create the initial gateway into the development and will be the main vehicular access into the site. To the east, the Crossborough Link Road extension will connect to the causing.
Yeah, Mr. Woolliscroft, you need to tie up now. You've been speaking 5 minutes.
I have apparently, Chair, I've been given 8 minutes to speak.
Yeah, if you're going to take time off the next two speakers, that's fine.
Yes, I think that was agreed, Chair. Yeah. The master plan clearly demonstrates that the proposals at the site will not prejudice the completion of a new West Coast Mainline bridge. Consultation with South Ribble and Lancashire County Councils on the alignment of the CBLR extension will will continue to ensure that it will not preclude connection to the West Coast Main Line and across to Leyland Road. This strategy has been agreed with LCC during the various meetings and liaison described in the consultation section of the master plan document. In terms of the internal access, B Lane, Flag Lane, Nib Lane, Moss Lane and Lords Lane will be retained unless appropriate alternative access routes are delivered, allowing for continued vehicular access to existing properties. Where possible, the lanes will be converted to pedestrian and cycle priority, and the rural character will be preserved through potential quiet lane status, which can be discussed during the planning process. This will create an enhanced network of pedestrian and cycle-friendly routes across the site. In terms of traffic impact, there will be a level of traffic clearly generated by the site during traditional weekday peak periods. We've provided a comprehensive, robust but realistic assessment of the background traffic from relevant committed developments, and the levels of traffic likely to be generated by the master plan and outline application sites. There will be some major highway improvements in the area that will improve the capacity of the local highway network, but off-site mitigation is likely to be required to facilitate this site. These are likely to consist of potential improvements to some key strategic junctions on the network, which might include those along the Penwortham Way and Leyland Road corridors. These are currently being discussed in detail with LCC and Highways England. Additional modelling has been requested by both authorities to provide them with more information on the potential reassignment of traffic as a result of the CBLR, the latest position on community developments in the area, and some bespoke modelling looking at the Leyland Road corridor in particular. A comprehensive IDS, the Infrastructure Development Schedule, forms part of the master plan, and this sets out a strategy for off-site highway works to ensure that the wider site can be delivered safely, suitably and viably. The site is considered as being highly accessible by foot and by cycle. The main point of pedestrian and cycle access will be from the proposed vehicular access points. However, proposals ensure that the site is permeable in numerous directions to maintain and promote better pedestrian and cycle linkages to the wider area. There are a number of opportunities to deliver public transport improvements in the area as well. And indeed,
Mr.
wider
Williscroft,
proposals.
If you wish the other two agents of the applicant to speak, you do need to tie up because you're running over to 20 minutes here.
Okay, I've got one paragraph left, Chair. I'll be very quick. Discussions have taken place with local bus operators to establish the potential for diverting an existing bus service to serve the site, and any service improvements will seek to provide a frequent service throughout the day and also consider weekends to a range of destinations. Bus routes will be designed to take into account the phasing of the development, and appropriate access to services will be provided for all land uses on the site. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Williscroft. Just bear with me.
They have approximately 4 minutes between them, the final two.
Okay, so Adam Thornton and Laura Day, between you, you've got 4 minutes. So, Adam, if you'd like, from 5+ Architects, if you'd like to present.
I will be brief and do anticipate speaking for reduced time. I'm Adam Thornton. I'm the Master Planners Developer, Master Planner Architect, and I've looked after the authorship of the Master Plan and the design codes, and right back to 2013 also helped author the original submissions. The vision for the site has developed over the decade. It sets out a vision for a new place, but rooted in the existing context we've talked about. It will be a new neighbourhood, well connected, encouraging activity, and should be a place both to settle down now, but needs to be something for future generations. The vision is to create a safe and sustainable community, and the development will have a full range of quality homes. Health and well-being of the existing and new residents is central, and the master plan layout is based on active design principles. It must be easier to walk, cycle and use public transport to get to that school and local centre than the car. And the master plan puts an emphasis on turning the existing lanes into more sustainable, pedestrian, cycle-friendly routes. The master plan is also accompanied by that set of design codes, and we have agreed this with your officers. To help create that high-quality place, we've set out a load of character areas across the site. Janice, fortunately, has gone through those in some detail, so I won't talk too much about those. But these character areas work with our approach to building heights and the land topography, which does vary by 8 metres. As part of that design process, we've looked at visual impact, the dominating feature is the pylon structures and cables across the site. And the visual impact assessment concludes that housing on the Penwortham side of that, Penwortham Way side, can be up to 3 stories, and on the east side of that, up to 4 stories. Generally, homes would be 2 or 3 stories, but the master plan allows for the possibility of taller 4-storey properties in key locations to promote good urban design. We've worked collaboratively with the local authority, local residents to develop this holistic master plan. I've personally met with a number of the residents at the consultation events. We've sketched, we've scribbled, and we've made sure that we get a scheme that does not impact on the existing residents. We've increased separation distance in the back gardens to more than the Central Lancashire District Plan Guide, SPD, to 14 metres. So in summary, for my element, we've kept the existing lanes as rural and traffic free as we can. We have reviewed the best place for the school and the best route for the cross-borough link road across the site, and it's all set out in the master plan document to help guide the future development in a comprehensive way. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Thornton. All right, we now have Laura Day from Avison Young. I'll just point out, you've got 1 minute. I have been lenient by allowing you 20 when I'm up. You're only usually allowed 15. So, Laura, if you'd like to make your presentation, we will be cutting you short after a minute.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm Laura Day, Associate Environmental Consultant with the Environmental Planning Team at Avison Young, and will now go through the environmental work undertaken to inform the preparation of the master plan. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the flood mitigation scheme proposed by the master plan will provide overall betterment in respect of flood risk and alleviate the existing vulnerability of the area to flooding, as well as mitigate for any future potential risk. No objections are raised by any of the relevant statutory consultees in respect of flood risk and drainage. A full suite of ecological surveys has been undertaken on the site and wider study area. To minimise impacts of the proposed development, a series of measures are proposed which include the preparation of a construction environmental management plan and comprehensive landscape and habitat management plan, which would be secured at the planning application stage. 10% biodiversity net gain will be achieved, and the intention is for it to be provided for on the site itself. A tree survey has been undertaken, and overall across the site, trees were found to be in good condition and mature. The developers commit to retaining all Category A quality trees. In addition, Category B trees and hedgerows on field boundaries will be retained where possible. There are no objections raised by the Council or any of the relevant statutory consultees to the master plan in terms of impact on trees. In terms of air quality, construction phase dust impacts on existing and future residents will be mitigated through a comprehensive range of measures included within the Construction Environmental Management Plan. The developers are committed.
I'm going to have to stop you now, Laura. That is your time up. Unfortunately, one of your predecessors well overran, and that's your 20 minutes up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Just for reasons of clarity for the Planning Committee, does Neil Stevens from LCC Highways wish to say anything?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I can support some of the words that Phil Williscroft indicated, that yes, we are having in dialogue for the past 2 years on a number of matters, whether it relates to mitigation, access, sustainability, etc. But with regard to all the points that have been raised, obviously they're all in my statutory comments, and I think some of the comments maybe sort of misleading as presented by Phil on some of the agreements that have been made. From my perspective, I am willing to work with Croft and the developers on coming forward with a master plan. I think there is one that is available that will work, but not that which is presented.
Okay, thanks for that. Before we open it up to committee, would we all be happy for a comfort break? Okay. So we'll have a 5-minute recess.
Chair.
Yes, Councillor Green.
Yeah, I've got a problem on my system here where I'm not receiving the access to putting your hand up.
Well,
so I do wish to speak. Can you just bring me in, please?
I'll bring you in when appropriate, Mrs. Green, okay?
Okay, thank you very
But
much.
I will bring you in, I won't forget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Will you do the same for me, please, Caleb? It's Barry.
Yeah, it's Barry. Was that you, Barry?
Yes, thanks, Caleb.
Yeah, I'll bring you in when we come back, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
I will just remind all members on Teams that we are still live on YouTube at the moment. Thank you.
Okay.
What time is it anyway? What time is it?
Yeah.
If it gets 8:30,
Hmm?
we'll let you drink.
Great.
So shut Gary quickly.
No, you can do though, if you will. Yeah.
Barry, you know you're not muted.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was muted.
Just in case. We're on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gents, can we resume, please? Right, I think Councillor Cliff Hughes has left. He had another appointment, so I'm going to open this up to committee. I have Councillor James Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, I just want to take us through, there's a number of elements really in terms of what we've heard here tonight. First of all, in terms of our role, just a message to colleagues really, because it's been a really positive experience being on the planning committee, and it's times like this when you realise the importance of a role. You've got to get the balance between policy and the impact that has on people's lives, as you've heard tonight. Excuse me. But when I read the report, all 106 pages, I think it's the first time I've seen so many inconsistencies in terms of a proposal at this level. I've never seen words like do not endorse, not satisfied, even colleagues joining us tonight saying things like misleading, which is on page 87 regarding one of the elements of I think it was the traffic or transport approach. And then you look at the key areas in terms of the impact it's going to have in terms of this development. When I was elected, I thought being elected was to help enable and endorse and grow and work together with the people who elected us. And then I see things like the infrastructure is not suitable. The air quality is going to have an impact on the community. There's no sustainable access. The list of concerns goes on and on. And then we have fortunately, in the structure of the committee, we hear Mike, Carolyn, Deborah, Gray and Peter, very emotional, very comprehensive, well prepared, very intelligent comments from residents. And whether we like it or not, it's those residents who will be, and the people they represent, impacted by this more than anyone. When I say about the balance between policy and people, without doubt, I was elected to represent people, so above all, it's always going to be about people. But the interpretation and consideration and respect of each application has to be done professionally, and with the good guidance and the good preparation like we've seen tonight from the reports from our officers, which was excellent. And then we hear from obviously the applicant in terms of they've obviously clearly done lots of work. I just think when I look at the whole thing in the context of what we're looking at as a committee, you need to go back. I think in terms of one of the recommendations, sorry, on paragraph 7, there's a recommendation which says what you need to do is come up with maybe some comments or some advice you can give the applicant. I think it's time to listen, then act, rather than act, then listen, which I think is evident in this application. Therefore, Chair, I move to propose refusal for the Picklands Farm Master Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Flannery. I now have Councillor Will Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all thank the officers for their detailed report, which provides extensive information for committee members and indeed the public. Can I also thank all the speakers who have passionately spoken tonight, particularly local residents, who will be greatly affected by tonight's result. All of the speakers this evening have highlighted many important issues. As we already heard, Highways England and Lancashire Highways have raised concerns regarding this proposal. Other consultees, such as Network Rail and Environmental Health, have also stated that this proposal is not sustainable in its current form. We have heard many different concerns raised, both by local residents and members who represent those residents. This is a complex site with many components. Policy C1, Section B, states a phasing and infrastructure delivery schedule is required to be policy compliant. It is stated in this report that short and long-term vehicle access options is a priority. Short and long-term is subjective, and in my view do not constitute a phasing and infrastructure delivery schedule. This is not sufficient. No timescales on key infrastructure projects ensures that this is not policy compliant, in my opinion. As a member who represents many residents on Leyland Road, and also a resident myself of Leyland Road, I do not need any consultee to tell me congestion is an issue. Leyland Road congestion is an issue now, never mind an extra 2,000 homes and even more vehicles. This congestion is also a growing environmental health issue for local residents, and I'm disappointed that the applicant has failed to address these issues, which is so important to local people. Environmental Health have gone as far to say that there needs to be a rethink on the overall layout of the site due to the air quality impact on local people. I would go further and agree with LCC Highways that I would not describe the current site as a highly sustainable location. Planning is often dominated by policy. However, I have always kept people at the forefront of my mind while making my decision tonight. The effect of this application will impact the lives of thousands of residents and surrounding areas. I am pro-development, but that development needs to be sustainable. The health and well-being of residents will always be paramount for me. The site is not sustainable and will negatively impact the lives of thousands of residents and many local communities. To conclude, Chair, it is for these reasons that I have highlighted and that others have highlighted, which is why I will second the proposal by Councillor Flannery to refuse this application. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Adams, thanks for that. Councillor Mary Green, please.
Thank you, Chair. I feel that there's 2 or 3 points actually that I need to discuss. The developers have stated during this consultation, this meeting tonight, that we need public transport to retain sustainability, which we do. But there's no definite indication of when the bridge is going to be rebuilt or strengthened or anything like that. It still seems very much up in the air. Also, with a project of this size and the number of people that is going to be living there, if they want to sustain public transport, as do I, they should facilitate the installation of a station, however minor or basic it is, but some facilities of using the railway link through to the direct link from Liverpool to Preston. I think that is crucial on here to sustain any transport whatsoever. And consequently, of course, it's keeping less cars off the road and obviously helping the pollution issues as well. So it's threefold in the fact that we need a station on there and that bridge needs doing ASAP, not down the line. Second issue, 18 months ago, perhaps a little bit longer than that, I attended a meeting with the developers and I saw the master plan designs at that stage and very seriously queried the pylon corridor. Now, we all know the serious potential worries about the health risks that come from these pylons of radiation, etc. Yet, I requested that this could be looked at, that it wasn't a suitable area for children to play or be houses or anything like that under these pylons. I can see from this master plan as it is at the moment, nothing has been addressed of this whatsoever. It's still running over that green area where children potentially could play, people walk with the dogs, horse riders, cyclists, whatever. And we do not know at this moment in time, 100%, any potential health risk that may come from the radiation effect of these pylons. So this needs looking at also. You won't be surprised, the people who know me on planning won't be surprised that I'm raising an issue of the design and size of the properties proposed on this site. On page 19, it's referred to that this estate is going to consist of traditional 2 to 3 stories. Now, can I ask you, colleagues and the residents watching in, when is a 3-storey house or building classed as traditional in South Ribble Borough Council? Never. It's classed as an exception in certain areas, but not as traditionally that type of building. And there's also a reference to 4 stories promoting a good urban design. Well, I'm sorry, we're not looking at an urban design in a town centre. We're looking at a rural development, very rural, with fields of sheep, cows, horses. That is the type of area we are looking at. I know it very well. I grew up in Tardigate and I used to walk regularly on a weekly basis round Bee Lane and Pope Lane. So I know the area very, very well. It is not a town centre development that lends itself to 4-storey properties. I feel personally that we have a master plan which is not ready yet. There are many issues to be addressed until it's completely suitable for the residents. So I feel, and I would like to propose, that we defer this issue this evening until these issues are improved, as is recommended by the officers on this report. And I'd also like to thank the officers for the very comprehensive report. There's a lot of work gone into that. And also to the residents who've taken the time and trouble to research and come to this meeting, be it that we're all on Teams, but you've come and put your case very eloquently forward. And I thank you all for that. So if I could propose deferment, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Yes, you can propose deferral. Councillor Barry Yates, please.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I first thank Janice for an excellent report and a detailed report. It's very much appreciated when you get an excellent report like this in front of you. I have to remind councillors that this application, Pickering's Farm, has been in our local plan for development for around 20 years. I do understand all the concerns that we have, but we have to look at it that it was all parties that voted this site into our local plan, not just a couple of councillors. It was done at a full council meeting. So that being made clear, I will have to go on and say, but I am saying that I have concerns on buildings 4-storey or over in South Ribble, and I consider them not to be acceptable in this master plan. I agree with the officer's recommendation that this should be deferred on highway grounds, so that we can sit back, we can get on with Blanchard County Council and sort all the highway problems that we have in this master plan. Otherwise, I think the master plan is sound. It's looking for what we do want in South Ribble, but it needs a lot of looking at on the height of the houses and the highways. So I'll second deferral, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Yates. Councillor David Shaw, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't declare myself as a member of Pembrokeshire Town Council because I've managed to avoid having to comment on any of these items through consultations with residents, with the developer. I've listened in on meetings and not had to contribute. And the reason I've done so is so that I can make a decision when the thing comes before this committee. And I've found myself still unsure exactly which way to go with this. And let me explain why, for the benefit of the residents who've been very good in giving me information. This is within, the master plan is a requirement within our local plan. The idea, the principle is that we would therefore accept development on that site almost as the preference, which allows us a degree of flexibility on other sites in the borough. There are other places where Homes England has land that we could see eventually getting built, and to some of us, the big problem with having a personal interest is simply that we've probably got some of that land in our area we'd quite like to wait and push it further back down the queue if we can. The other problem we have is, having made this one of our big sites for the future, is that if we simply turn it down, where do we stand as a council with our provision of housing land? Because if we leave ourselves short as a result of turning down a large site, what's to stop piecemeal development appearing all over the place, including, let's say, 900 houses on the A582 side of this site, without the greater picture being put into place with all the mitigation measures? Maybe somebody will try that, and maybe they will get away with an inspector following their view on it because we haven't got the provision. So I have a difficulty. I don't like the current master plan as it stands. I think it's, what I would like to say is not half baked, but half cooked. I don't think it's fully there. I don't think they've fully analysed these things. And I'm a little bit nervous that they might simply say, here's the master plan. We're not doing the end of it. We'll have the first 1,100 houses and we'll take our profit, and it'll go out in the 600 million in dividends that they gave out last year for the next time. So I have a concern with that. And as an example, a very, very small example of why I think it's not been fully looked at, is the question of the orchard. We raise the issue of the orchard and they say, oh, well, we'll keep it then, or we might put it somewhere else on the site. If we're looking at 300-year-old pear trees, and if you go down Nib Lane and look up, you will see that it's pears. Why is it pears? Because apple trees die after about 100, 150 years. And pear trees live for about 300, 400. That's why the pears on that site. As a bare minimum, they could say, instead of, oh well, we have to build a house on that, but we could put up some pear trees somewhere else on the site. They could say, well, why don't we get somebody in to look at what we've got on the site in detail, and if necessary, take grafts and put them somewhere where they can be preserved, if they're valuable. So I think they're just not fully committed to this, and I'm a little bit nervous that the reason that they're not fully committed to it is that they're just looking at the first 1,100 houses, and the rest is just hassle and money and expense. So I'm going to listen to the rest of the debate if there is much more, and then I'm afraid I'm going to make up my own mind on the basis of that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Just to answer a couple of questions, I'll bring in first Jonathan Node and then Dave Whelan.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on some of the issues raised by Councillor Shaw, that I think he highlights some valid concerns there in terms of that the authority does need to meet its housing needs, and sometimes there can be implications if we're not meeting our housing needs. Particularly, the government places on us a housing 5-year supply test where we have to show we've got enough land in the borough to enough deliverable and developable land in the borough to meet our 5-year housing supply needs. Our latest figures with the best case scenario are showing something in excess of a 10-year supply at the moment. So if that reassures Councillor Shaw and the rest of committee that we're in a very good position in terms of the amount of planning permissions that are out there already in terms of meeting that 5-year test that government places on us. I think it's also important to highlight by turning down the master plan tonight, what the committee is not saying is we're refusing development full stop. It's more a case of if development was to come forward on this site, we don't like the proposals or the shape or the vision for this site. So some of the concerns Councillor Shaw has mentioned, like the orchard, for example, that's a valid issue to bring up at this point, and the master plan needs to be addressing that if it comes back here. Like I said at the start of the meeting, this isn't a planning application at this stage. This is very much about what is the vision for the site if it does come forward for development. I hope that assists.
Okay, Dave.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, Jonathan has said something I was already going to say. The decision here tonight is whether to approve the master plan. It's not whether to grant planning permission. The site is in our local plan. It's a key site for development in our local plan. That's not what's in question. What's question is whether we should either defer or, as being proposed tonight, refuse to accept this particular master plan. Whatever route you go down, whether the defer or the refuse route, I think it's imperative that, and to be fair to the development, that to the developer, to the applicant, that they have clarity over what your concerns are. Now, paragraph 6 of the report does list a number of concerns, but that's, I wouldn't say, is an exhaustive list. And I think whether you go down, as I say, whether you go down the defer route or the refuse route, and by the way, I'm not you may well choose to approve it. I'm not prejudging anything here, but nevertheless, if there are any other specific concerns you have, they need to be raised. Now, one thing that's already been alluded to, which as far as I can see is not set out in that list, are some of the concerns raised by environmental health and in particular issues relating to air quality. So that's something you could add to the list. But the one thing I'd like at the end of tonight is, wherever the decision is, that at least the applicant, the developer, can see the concerns are A, B, C and D, and so they know what to address. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. We have Councillor Keith Martin.
Thank you, Chair. We've always we've looked at this with the master plan, and we sort of predisposed ourselves, I suppose, to making sure that it's a correct master plan and it's correct for the job that it says it wants to do. So I do have a few points. Some may be technical, and maybe our LCC colleague Neil might be able to help with some of them. So I'll just list through some of this, what I've written here. Concerns about Bee Lane Bridge. Bee Lane Bridge is approximately 7 metres wide. If you're going to have sustained two-way traffic on there, as well as horses, it also, the developers seem to have admitted the fact that Bee Lane is part of the new cycle or exercise route that the neighbourhood plan at Town Council has identified. I do traffic management, so for me, two-way traffic needs at least 6.75 metres, and from colleagues at County have always installed at least 3 metres for a shared footpath, cycle path, so that which comes to about 10 metres, which isn't quite the width of the bridge. So you're always going to have an issue there. Plus the fact that the bridge is also commonly used by train spotters from all over the country. Because a lot of interesting trains apparently go under those bridges. I'm also a bit worried about the weight limits on it. Talking about weight limits, Leyland Road has a 17-tonne limit with an 18-tonne limit bridge, so heavy vehicles can't cross that way. The Causey has a 7.5-tonne limit. Coot Lane has a 7.5-tonne limit and a weak bridge. The only way construction vehicles can access that site would be from the north side, which means from the brand new resurfaced side. I'm not sure that's a coincidence or not. But the options also they could come off the bypass or the A582 via New Lane or Kingsfold Drive. Kingsfold Drive is a 20-mile-an-hour limit, highly populated residential area. So I do have concerns with that. And Leyland Road is also down as a future bus corridor, which means where's the traffic going to go if the buses are a priority there? So they're obviously having to go down the 582, which isn't been built yet. Permission hasn't been given to build that yet. So similar to other developments, it's an aspiration. It's not going to happen yet. We don't know it's going to happen yet. So we're going to determine this on an aspiration that there may be a dual-in of the 582. Because whatever happens there, you will affect other people going through that street. We have issues with flooding in Kingsfold. I think Jonathan will know, and a few other residents will know. The northeast side of that site always floods. I've just checked on Mario, and there's been flooding there since the 60s. There's always been flooding there. You can see the scarring on the fields from images from the 60s. So the issue with the flooding is that we've always had an issue with flooding on Highcroft and Friars Close. We got some work done to to fix that. But if more water is going to be pumped in onto Millbrook from this site, it's going to have an effect on because the culvert on Highcroft is only about 3 foot deep. So we always have a worry there when it does rain. As I mentioned, the road widths and things like that. The ecology report sort of misses out one vital species, which is human beings. They're not always so bright. They tend to invent policies and put procedures in that start their own demise. And I think as sort of responsible people who care for the environment that we live in, we should always preserve all nature and not just the nature that looks cute and furry, even though I do have a beard. So I'm a bit concerned about the bus going past the community centre. It's a very narrow road that will need some work on it. Although there's not so many residents down there, it's quite a tight turn to get down there, so work will need to be done there. They talk about creating communities. You can't just create a community unless you create a sterile community. I mean, because communities have evolved over time. I mean, someone will have work and things like that, but communities always seem to evolve, and most preferably around work. There's no work in this area. The enterprise zones, we've not heard anything about jobs for there, unless I've got 74 degrees, which I haven't. Also, Curedon site is nowhere near coming online, so there are no jobs for these possible 4,000 people. If they have children, then there might be more. So there's nothing there for them to do. What you do though is remove all the access for health and stuff like that. The area is down for use as a health route, as I said before. And I think that's about it for now, unless I think of something else, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Martin. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, just because it's been in the local plan for 20 years, that doesn't make this application right. And the world has changed significantly in that time. Local plans can change to meet the requirements of our communities now and presently, and it is our job as members to reflect the views of our residents. So just because it's in the local plan doesn't make this application right. Thank you.
You mean the master plan application, don't you? Okay, thanks for that. Do we have anyone else wishing to contribute from the committee? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It is a dilemma for the committee, obviously. I've been around quite a long time with this master plan. I think started work on it in 2007. Eventually got somewhere in virtually 2010. It was a torturous business in actually putting it together. it was a 15-year plan, basically. So we were providing housing, infrastructure, business, employment, schools, health and well-being, all the various things for a 15-year period. You need a good crystal ball to look 15 years ahead, but nevertheless, that was a requirement of this council. It was a requirement of the councillors to put this together. We spent many hours and days and weeks and months looking at this plan, and a lot of thought went into it. And this particular site, there's a lot of thought went into this particular site in Pickering's Farm, as it was then, and still is, I think, in most people's mind, to be quite honest. It's still Pickering's Farm, no matter what the developers might want to call it. It is still Pickering's Farm to us. That's what we've been working on for a long, long time. And it is a key project for this council. It's taken a long time to get together. I've been to many meetings over the years. I've had one or two with the developers. I've been to some of the consultation events. And I do have to wonder why the developers actually brought something here this evening, which is, everybody knows it's incomplete. It is an incomplete document. Some of the things that we've been talking about over the last 10 years with regard to this, about the highways and the infrastructure, the 582, the bridge over the, I was going to say bridge over the River Kwai then, but it might as well be. It's probably just as about good a chance of getting that built, but it's... So, where has the station gone? There was an agreement that there would be a station on the Farrington Curve, which would ease traffic flows. There would be a car park there, and people could travel back and to either Preston or Ormskirk or Southport or Liverpool or wherever it was. Where did that go? There's not a single-storey building proposed in the master plan. 2-storey, 3-storey, 4-storey. I mean, where on earth are they coming from? There's a load of work got to be done. I looked at this master plan, and maybe somebody can confirm that to me over there. The green bit on here is all going to propose to be 4-storey. Yeah. There's a red bit which is 2-storey, which is, I don't know, about 30 or 40% of the site. There's a little bit of 3-storey, which is about 20% of the site, and the rest of it is 4-storey building. Where has that come from? And we talk about an incomplete master plan. It is incomplete. The green, and if we're looking for sort of things to add to the master plan. I've got copious notes here. I'm going to get lost in it very shortly, but you'll have to just bear with me because this is really important. The main green links on here, which is the other one, and I have to do paper. I don't do. I do paper. I understand paper. It never goes away. You never lose it. You don't lose contact with it. It's always there. You can put it under your pillow if you like and sleep on it. It makes good reading. The main green area on there is the pylon corridor. The other part of the green area, which is the main part of that, is a sustainable urban drainage, which means you're not going to play there. You're not going to walk under it. Most of it's a reed beds and various things, and I take it it's sustainable drainage. It says so in the thing, it's sustainable, so I believe what it's telling me. The professionals have said that's sustainable drainage, and the drainage can work. I'm very familiar with the area. We live out not too far from there. It's not near enough to be affected by it, although it can do. If it comes out of the 582, there'll be a lot of cars coming out there. But I am familiar with the ground conditions, because I've got a fair piece of land myself with the same ground conditions that the water does not go anywhere. So it is an issue, but the document tells me there's a sustainable drainage So I take that the drainage is sustainable and that it can be made to work. So for me, the master plan is far from complete. I would like to see more with regard to this, which is the proposed housing types, which is in the number 9 development parameters, which is so way out of line with what we've got in South Ribble. It's so way out of line. I don't know what he's doing here. We should have an area of bungalows, single story, whatever you want to call them. There should be an area of that. It's not in the report. We need a larger area. There's quite a good area of 2-story. We need more than that. We do have some 3-story in South Ribble. Whether it's appropriate or not is another story. But 3-story is 5-bedroom houses normally. Top bedroom, that's what it is. 4-story, well, I don't know if there's any 4-story in South Ribble, to be quite honest. It strikes me it could be flats or apartments or whatever it might be. It's not clear within the report itself. So I'd like a lot more clarity on that going forward. So my feeling is we need some more green space. We need to revisit the housing allocation, not the housing allocation, but the housing types that are in the parameters. The orchard, I mean, why would you want to dig up an orchard? I mean, it shouldn't even be in anybody's head that they want to do something like that. Okay, so that's a given that stops. We don't dig up an orchard. We don't even look at moving it. Why would you want to do that? It's just an appalling abuse of the system. Options on the 582 and bringing the Crossborough Link Road out on the 582. Well, an option of a 1 lane on the 582, an option of 2 lane. I'm sorry, that's not an option. 582 is 2 lanes, and that has to be developed first. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the 582 needs to be completed in its entirety before any traffic comes out on that road. There's no doubt about that. The quiet lanes need to be quiet lanes. They need the hedgerows. It's already been said that the hedgerows seem to be an option. The hedgerows are not an option. The green corridors, the green lanes. Have I got to wind up? No, sorry, Chair. I thought you were telling me to wind up then, but I wasn't going to obey you because I've got quite a bit more to say yet, but I'm just going to carry on with my ramble because I think it needs a bit of a ramble. The master plan's a ramble. The officer's report is very good, I have to say, and it's quite clear, which is why I'm going to go with the officer's report, because I think the report is clear. The report, and we are here tonight, and we're going to send a strong message back to the developer, or the master plan, whoever's put it together, that it isn't good enough. It's not what's been asked for. It's not what's been asked for a long, long time, and it requires a serious coat of looking at. It needs more green space. It needs more open space. It needs more hedgerows. All those things are absolutely paramount in that area. And certainly to do that, we probably need less housing on there to start with, which is another story. But whatever happens with these things, it always seems to be, we say 200 houses, we get 300 houses. We say 500 houses, we get 600 houses. It's so there needs some sort of clarity on that, to be quite honest. But certainly the options for the future dualling of the 582 is no option as far as I'm concerned, and that needs to go back. I know Neil's over there and he's listening to everything that can be said there, and I'm sure Neil agrees with that. It's something we've wanted for a long time, and it's not an aspiration of the council. It is more than an aspiration. It's absolutely a fundamental requirement, not an aspiration, that those links are put in place. That's it for a minute from me, Chair. I hope that helps, Eddie, with some of the notes that are being made over there, but that's it from me, and I might want to come back later.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Flannery, then Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just for balance and context, we do have other sites in South Ribble which are more appropriate and sustainable and don't cause as much disruption to our communities. So just in terms of balance, I think it's worth well as remembering that also before we vote. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a bit of clarity, really. We keep getting told that a deferment is what the report recommends. It doesn't recommend a deferment. It just says don't approve or don't go with it, or go with it. I mean, there's no deferment. So I just want to clarify, probably through legal, that is a deferment and us rejecting it as it is the same thing, because they'll just go away and they'll listen to what we have to say. They'll hopefully do more consultation and come back with a different master plan, because you can't defer this master plan because it means coming back very similar but with a few tweaks, whereas what we're asking perhaps is a bit more than that. Dave Whelan?
Yeah, I mean, through you, Chair, I mean, I think Stephen Brown has been making note of all the issues you've raised, so I think there's common ground across members, but there is a difference here between we had the original motion, which was to refuse, and the amendment, which was to defer, the amendment being in line with the officer's report. The officer's report says it is further recommended that consideration of the master plan, etc., be deferred in order that the developer can address the following concerns. Those are the officer recommendations. In the past, that's what we've done with these sort of master plans. In a way, that's it's for you to decide, but in a way that would be my preferred recommendation to be carried through tonight. However, it's entirely a matter for yourselves, and much of what Councillor Martin said is correct in the sense that whether you defer it or whether you refuse it, the effect is going to be broadly the same. The applicant is going to have to go away and revisit the master plan and see how they can address some of these concerns, some of which are quite significant, and how they can improve the master plan and bring it back so that it can get to a state where a majority of the committee will feel able to support it. So in practical terms, the difference is probably not that great, but it's a matter for yourselves.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Just hearing what Dave said, and thank you for your guidance, I do think there's an opportunity here. I don't think we can say of all the issues that have been raised, and there's significant issues, they're not just little issues here and there. I think we've been quite damning tonight as a committee in terms of this application of the master plan. And I think my personal opinion is tonight we can send a message to the applicant to say we've got very grave concerns, and because of those very grave concerns we reject this master plan in its current form and not defer it, because I think deferring it just sends the wrong message in terms of tweaks here and there. I think I agree with everyone on the planning committee and those people that have spoken before us about the grave concerns, and I think, in my opinion, which is why I seconded refusal, which is why I think we should do that, because we need to send a message to the developer to say that these concerns are valid. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Anyone else? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I won't say I've had time to reflect since I last spoke, but I haven't. But no, I think as what has been said here this evening does send a very, very strong message back to the people that have drawn the master plan up, the developers, the Homes England. It sends a very strong message that, to be quite honest, it's not good enough. And it's not good enough for all the reasons that have been stated here this evening. There's some good work in the master plan, I have to say. It's quite a substantial document. And the link road that goes through there from the 582 and over the bridge, I mean, we've discussed that for year after year after year after year. It was a single carriageway, it went straight across, it did a wobbly route through all the houses. And now it's actually come back with something that's really quite good, I have to say. It's a proper width on the link road, the Crossborough link road. It's got footpaths on both sides, 3 metres on one side, 2 metres on the other, cycleway. There's a lot of good work done in that highways. So I wouldn't want to lose that, to be quite honest. There is a lot of work to do with regard to the green infrastructure and the highways and various other things that have been mentioned, and not least the station. And it was said at the time, well, nobody will build a station. Well, they won't if it's not on the plan. If it's not in the plan, it won't be considered. If it is in the plan, somebody at some stage will consider it. It's really important. Particularly when the rail, British Rail, whoever it is that build bridges and build railway lines, are dualling up that railway line. They want to, it's a single track at the moment. They want 2 tracks on there, I believe. That's the aspiration. So that station, or the ability to build a station there, rather than fill it full of houses, is really, really important for the transportation of people over a long, long period of time. So I'm sticking with my decision. I'm supporting the officers' recommendations. I think they've done a lot of work on this. I think it's a good report, and I think it sends the right messages to the developers that we're not prepared to put up with it. I was around a few years ago when Site W came back. I think that came back 3 or 4 times, and I spoke against it on each occasion. We almost threw the developers out of the room at one stage because it was so bad. But it came back in a form that then became acceptable to the local community. So I'm not sure whether this ever will come back in a form that will be acceptable to the local community, but we have to take as borough councillors, have to take a wider view of the housing needs and requirements and the jobs and recreation that brings. We do have to take that wider view, and sometimes it is uncomfortable. But that's why we're here. So I haven't changed my mind. I will support the officers' report, and that the developers take it back and look at it and come back with some serious amendments, and not only before it gets here, that a serious amount of consultation takes place, particularly with the officers, that they actually don't bring something back to this council which is unacceptable again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Caroline Moon.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a hand either to wave at you, so I'm sorry. It was just to say, really, I think whether we vote against or we move to defer, either way, there's clearly this master plan is not being accepted by the South Ribble Planning Committee. I will move to defer and follow the officer recommendation on this instance, and I'll say why I'll do that. I'll do that because there are some elements of this master plan that nobody has spoken against, and there are some elements of this master plan that statutory consultees are accepting of. So for me, it's not a complete failure of a master plan, but I think I agree that it's a master plan that is a long way from acceptable. From my perspective, I want to say that when Councillor Shaw spoke about are they going to bring forward the early, take the low-hanging fruit, develop the 1,000 houses and run. For me, that's the bit that concerns me most. I will not vote to accept a master plan that does not put the infrastructure first and puts the infrastructure in a way that is acceptable to us as a borough and to our local communities, doesn't gridlock our road system that's already suffering, doesn't increase our air pollution that's already causing us trouble. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to see another master plan version come back to this council that still tells me that they've got no plan for whether they're going to join up a road, and we've not sorted out the plan for the bridge, but we'll get round to that in the future at some point, maybe. We've been there before. We've been here before. We had the road to nowhere that sat there with a dead end for 20 plus years, and we had to fight like dogs to bring that forward and join our borough. And I don't think we should do that again. I strongly feel, Chair, and I'm sure you can tell, you can hear it, our opportunity to learn from hindsight is here right before us. And if we don't learn from hindsight, then I'm sorry, I just think we don't deserve to be sat here on this council. If we don't strongly say, don't come back with a master plan until you can show us that this is going to be delivered in its entirety and is not going to be piecemeal, part done, kind of, sort of, never actually finished, and you're going to leave us, literally leave us holding the baby and off you go. I'm not accepting it, Chair. So I want to just add that I concur with what colleagues have said. I want to see orchard protected. I want no 4-storey. I can't understand why we've no bungalows. All the things that have been raised, Chair, I am fully supportive of, and I want to see changes. But more than anything, don't bring me back a master plan until the infrastructure, and I mean all of it, long term, is fully costed, fully organised. We know exactly where the money's coming from, who's paying for what, and when. Don't bother, because I won't support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Moon. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Councillor Hesketh.
I keep trying to get in contact with you and it doesn't seem to appear. But I go along with everything that's been said tonight by the locals and so forth, and I agree with Councillor Smith that I think we go along with the officer's recommendation. It will come back, and it can be, and hopefully it will come back in a reasonable condition. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hesketh. Any other members of committee wishing to speak? Yes, Councillor Dave.
Sorry, Chair. I think it may be a good idea if we ask Stephen Brown just to summarise the issues which have been discussed, and then I'm picking up that there's still a divided opinion in committee. Although I think committee is pretty much united over what the issues are, there's a division between whether members want it to be deferred in line with the officer recommendation or whether it should just be outright refused. So what we'll have to do is take the amendment first, which is for deferment, and then, well, depending on what happens there, is we then may need a second vote on refusal. But I think if Stephen could just summarise the issues for us before we do that, and these will be issues in addition to what's already set out in paragraph 6 of the report.
Yeah, just to say, I've written 6 pages, so we will be taking some time, okay. So I've gone by councillor as they spoke. So I've got Councillor Michael Green, concerns about 1 and 2 storey and the height around existing housing, delivery of the bridge, funding for the dualling. The southernmost section is safeguarded, and we have asked to see this protected. B lane not appropriate. The train station, air quality, the concerns raised by the parish council. Councillor Clark, important to meet housing needs but concur with the points made. Councillor Karen Walton, little reference to the impact on Chain House Lane, congestion on Leyland Road, needs infrastructure to be complete. The village centre health will not be completed early, and that will encourage people to travel to Lostock Hall. The need for reviewing the public transport, air quality management issues, surface water to Millbrook concerns. Councillor Barry Yates, Janice, excellent report. 4-storey not acceptable. Highway grounds need sorting, and he seconded deferral. Councillor David Shaw, he was torn as this could push it to other sites off the A582, etc. But he didn't like elements of the master plan, particularly the loss of the orchard, and made reference to the pear trees and the age of the actual trees. Councillor Keith Martin, B Lane Bridge, 7 metres wide, and it's part of a new exercise route. It's used by train spotters. There's a weight limit issue, drainage and parts of the site, particularly in Highcroft and to Friar Close. concerns about if the buses are going through to Kingsfield, that will then push traffic on A582. The ecology report misses out on human beings. Bus going past the community centre can't just create communities, they usually evolve around work. There's no work around here, with little progress on the EZ and the Cuerden development. Health concerns in terms of access to health. Councillor Carol Wooldridge agrees with those views presented by the neighbours, agree with the Penwortham Town Council views. Penwortham neighbourhood plan policy is not adhered to, particularly policies 4, 6 and 8, and not good use of B lane. Health and safety issues, there's cyclists, walkers and prams on B lane. Councillor Ian Watkinson, potentially awful impact on residents of existing houses on B lane. They will be living on a building site in many cases for the rest of their lives, and he quoted a reference to the time it took to build Bookshaw. Then the first occasion that Councillor Flannery spoke, refusal, and then Councillor Will Adams, air quality on Leyland Road. Councillor Mary Green, bridge is all up in the air, it's not resolved, needs sustained public transport. 18 months ago there was a meeting where she queried the pylon corridor radiation and impact on health, and nothing has been done. Design and size of the site, traditional 2- and 3-storey properties are not traditional to the area. It's not an urban area, and 4-storey is not appropriate. It's rural, and she recommended deferment. Then Councillor Adams again, just because it's been in a local plan for years doesn't make this application right. Councillor Phil Smith, dilemma, been around since 2007 as a master plan, and has taken a lot of work to evolve to this stage. It was a 15-year plan with a lot of work went into it as a site and a key project for the council. Wonder why this has been brought when this is incomplete in terms of infrastructure, roads, bridges, railway station. There's no single-storey buildings, a lot of 4-storey buildings across the site that is inappropriate. Main green link is the pylon corridor with nowhere for children to play. Ground conditions, water does not go anywhere on his own land, and he feels it will be the same on this site. More to do with housing type, single-storey needed, and more 2-storey, not the 3 and 4. Why would you dig up an orchard? Totally inappropriate. A582 needs to be completed and dualled before there's any more traffic goes onto it. Quiet lanes need to be kept, and the hedgerows. This isn't good enough. More green, more open space, less housing. Councillor Flannery again, other sites are more appropriate and sustainable than this one. And then Councillor Martin, clarity on what deferral means in this context. Councillor Adams again, issues are significant, very grave, and sought to reject in its current form. Councillor Smith again, we need to send a very strong message back. A lot of work has gone into it. It's a thick document. Link Road now really quite good in terms of width, footpaths and cycleways, but we need more green infrastructure. Station needs to be on the plan in association with potential doubling up of the railway track. Site W came back 3 or 4 times and then was acceptable. Not sure if this will ever be acceptable. Councillor Caroline Moon, either way that we deal with it, whether deferral or refusal, some elements haven't been spoken about, so it's not a complete failure, but clearly unacceptable elements. Will not vote on a plan that doesn't include infrastructure, bridge, looks at air quality. We've had a road to nowhere before, and we had to fight for 20 years. We need to learn from hindsight. Piecemeal is not acceptable. Concurred with all the points raised about the orchard, no 4-storey, and the need for fully costed infrastructure. And then finally, Councillor Hesketh goes along with everything that's been said and seeks to bring it back in a reasonable condition.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. On another lighter note, I think the road to nowhere was by Talking Heads. Right, okay, so we're going to go to the vote for deferral. Yes. And I will call your names, and all I need off you is for deferral or against. Do you want to?
Yes, sorry, it's both. The first vote, because this was the amendment, is for deferment. Do you want me to read through the councillors' names, Chair?
Yes, you can do, yeah.
Right, so Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Donoghue.
Against.
The deferment is obviously deferment. Yeah, but with the extra conditions that we're talking about. So we need just to make that clear. It's not just on what is in the report. It's actually with all the things that Jonathan was talking about.
Well,
sorry.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Yes, that was the idea why I asked Stephen Brown so we're getting a bit of feedback.
Stephen, yeah.
That was the reason why I asked Stephen Brown to go through everything, because I think committee is united on what the issues are. There's just a disagreement about whether you want to defer or refuse. So we've gone through Councillor Adams, Donoghue, Councillor Flannery.
Against.
Councillor Mary Green.
For.
Councillor John Hesketh.
Deferral.
Councillor Cliff Hughes has gone. So Councillor Keith Martin.
Refusal against the deferral.
Councillor Christine Melia.
Against.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
For.
Councillor David Shaw.
For.
Councillor Phil Smith. And Councillor Barry Yates.
For.
And so it's for you, Chair, to vote.
I'm against deferral. There's so much wrong with this master plan. Just isn't funny. They need to redo a complete master plan, and they need to put infrastructure first before they start building on that land.
That's policy.
The result of that, Chair, is 6-6, so you would have the casting vote.
Well, I'm against deferral.
On that basis, then, Chair, we move to the vote for refusal.
Certainly.
Yeah.
If you'd like to do the same day.
Certainly. So, Councillor Adams for refusal. For.
Why?
Councillor Donoghue. For.
Why vote for refusal? Again?
Councillor Mrs Green, can you?
Sorry. I'm against. Against.
You're against refusal, Miss Councillor Green.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you mute your mic now, please?
So I've done Councillor Adams, Councillor Donoghue, Councillor Flannery.
For.
Councillor Mary Green has already indicated no. Councillor John Hesketh.
No.
Councillor Cliff Hughes has gone. Councillor Keith Martin.
I'm for the refusal to send a message.
So Councillor Martin is for refusal. Councillor Christine Melia.
For.
Councillor Caroline Moon.
I'm for voting against. So I would have preferred deferral personally, because I thought there were some elements that were agreed by statutory consultees. But if that's fallen, then I will vote against, because I don't accept this master plan as it is. I think we'll come to the same point ultimately, but I want to vote in favour of being against it.
So I'll put you down in favour of refusal in the circumstances, given that the earlier vote failed. Yeah.
If that makes sense, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Against.
And Councillor Barry Yates.
Against.
And then it's your vote, Chair.
I'm for refusal.
So the refusal is carried, Chair.
Caroline Moon.
Okay, so that master plan application has been refused. Can I, before you all go, just remind you we do have an additional planning committee meeting on Monday, that's the 21st at 6 p.m. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks for your attendance tonight. The official time now is 9:07. Okay, thanks very much for your attendance, ladies and gentlemen. Hope to see you all on Monday.